Chris. Maybe they're on Zoom. David?
Dave Mills.
Well, Linda's here. That's
Do have a quorum.
so we got what it takes.
What's that? Because we have a total, so our total number of planning commissioners is 7. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. So you have exactly a quorum,
Nice.
50 plus 1.
So you got 1 in-towner and 3 out-of-towners.
There you go.
It's a good thing.
Hey, all right.
You're about as close to in town though. You're
Are you technically in the county, like UGB area?
On Shady Oak, right by the water tank,
Oh, right on.
the big one.
he can throw a rock and hit the city.
Good. If it ever cracks, I'm gonna get a bath.
Mhm.
All right. You are good to begin now, Commissioner Eastridge. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the benefit of the public. And I've got some presentations and things that I'll share, so I'll be toggling back and forth between the agenda as necessary. Okay,
Excellent.
you should be good to go.
Okay, call this meeting to order. What is this? October 6th,
It is.
2025. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So just a quick point of clarification that stood out to me just a moment ago. It appears that you all like to do Pledge of Allegiance before roll call first, right off the bat.
Okay, sure.
Well, I don't know about
That's an
that.
observation. I'm just noticing.
I didn't have an agenda. Right.
No,
so-
But I noticed city council does that too. I will reverse that.
Touche.
I'll make that the other way around. I noticed that with council too.
They well, get off on the right foot. I
I'm
think.
getting used to the culture.
Ceremony.
I think we do the pledge first.
Yep,
did.
okay.
So. Roll call.
Yes, indeed.
You want to start it out?
Yeah, sure. Thomas Fiorelli, city administrator, city planner for the planning commission meeting.
Tim Eastridge.
Torrin Nielsen.
Turn your gizmos on.
Linda. Is it lit up? It doesn't look lit up.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah.
You're all lit up.
And then, so we have roll call done. I'm only switching my screen so I can go over to a presentation that I have ready for everybody tonight. I'm working on getting a laptop that I can carry around with me, but right now I'm transferring files through email so I can get them on this computer. And let me just go ahead and confirm our first presentation is in Vision Monroe. Thank you.
You haven't had the cakewalk yet.
What's the cakewalk exactly?
And you don't have to do all this fun stuff. Catch up.
I don't know if I'm going to experience that in the next couple of years.
You're not there yet. You're at the donut stage.
There's a lot of stuff over the last several years that we just sort of let kind of go, and I'm trying to figure out, I'm going back years at this point to find, okay, what do we need to button up? And that's why you all are going to be really instrumental when we get to our second presentation tonight, talking about forms and stuff. This is kind of fun, high level. And I hope you enjoy this little exercise that I have planned out here. So
It's like the zoning of Commercial Street. Has that ever been accomplished yet?
the zoning of,
Rezoning of Commercial Street?
oh, you mean the properties along Commercial Street? Do you mean for the overlay?
6 to 7 to,
For it to be turned into
Commercial.
zoned commercial or zone change for commercial.
That's a loaded question you're asking. Does it show up on our map? Yes. Did we tell the state? No. And so we will do those things, but there's a few steps first.
okay. I don't want to add insult to injury, so
Oh, no, it's all I'm glad you're asking those questions. All of these questions need to be asked. Because that's the only way we're gonna identify any challenges that the city has, any liabilities we need to fix up, anything that we started and didn't finish. I really appreciate you bringing those things up, because the only way we're gonna do it is together.
Well, I think clarifying what you just said earlier is important, that if we pass something and it's changed on our own maps, until it reaches the state and the state records our change, it doesn't exist. So that's a part that really, on a lot of different things, we have to go back and make sure the state has recording of things that we may have done. Or we go back and do them again and then submit them to the state this time.
The state has a process they call a PAPA. It's a post-acknowledgement plan amendment. Anytime you do something with your land use code or your comprehensive plan or anything having to do with land use, you have to tell DLCD that you did it. First, you have to tell them you're gonna do it, or it doesn't count. Then you have to notice it. Then you have to talk about it. Then you have to take the action,
Yep.
which we've done pretty good up until those steps.
Yeah.
But then you have to actually file the final PAPA with the state to say, hey, we did the things, we have the findings, here's what we've done. And they send you a response back that says acknowledged. The reason this is so critical is because a good example is our comprehensive plan. Prior to the 2019 update, we had a 1980s version of our comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is the one that the state acknowledges. We never sent our comprehensive plan up to the state. So if somebody comes forward to build a
Honest to God.
development and they don't like what we've told them
Uh-huh.
in the new comprehensive plan, we made some changes and you want to hold them to that? Well, then they can take it to the Land Use Board of Appeals, which is a state entity that allows for applicants to protest and ask the state to overturn the city's decision. The first thing that LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals, is going to do is look to what acknowledged comprehensive plan is on file. And so if we're trying to hold them to the 2019, the state's going to go, they're going to be able to go back to the 1980s if they want to. So we just have a few little steps to button up. We did the work, right? We just have to make, exactly right. We just have to make sure we check those final boxes. We'll get to that.
Let's check those boxes.
We are doing that. So there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes administratively that I'm taking care of now. A couple of things coming before you tonight. So this is a continuation of our discussion from last month. We were talking about like Envision Monroe, right? What are we going to do with the city? Especially since we have potentially up to a couple of years to think about it while we're going through some corrective programs with our infrastructure. So I have a few exercises for you tonight. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to revisit the framework that we had talked about. Council's heard the framework. They appreciated the comments that came from commission last month. I want to look over commissioners' individual areas of interest and expertise. What are you interested in really digging into a little bit more? I want to begin drafting those goals and objectives that we were talking about and prepare them for November's joint session. It was August that we had a joint session and we're going to talk about every 3 months. So November, that's coming up pretty soon. And review a timeline and confirm the deliverables for November through December. So just a quick background. So we're looking at this as a long-range planning initiative over the next couple of years. We want to conduct it during the moratorium on new development. And we want to integrate multiple plans, a comprehensive plan, the development code, our transportation system plan, our capital improvement plan, which is in the works that doesn't exist yet, and then our parks and natural systems plan. So we have a parks plan to what do we want to do to possibly look at that and expand it. We have Councilor Williams, who's really taking a lead on that part. So our outcome is we want a unified strategic framework. It's going to guide this city for the next 20 years of growth and investment.
Can I
Yeah.
step back? So you mentioned the parks plan. Is she gonna, so she is on the parks committee?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I'm going to walk over here and turn on these lights. Keep going. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, yeah, I somehow have fallen out of sync with that committee, even though I'm ostensibly on it. So I think there was a long time when we didn't have any meetings, and
Correct.
is Jeannie still chairing or in charge of that committee, or is?
Yeah, Jeannie's still on the committee. Counselor Williams is on it, so that I can update you all. Since our last joint meeting with council, council has taken a look at all of the committees,
Mhm.
and they will be at their next session identifying all the members of existing committees, recertifying their terms, and recertifying what members of the council and the public are on it.
Mhm.
And then really just saying from this point forward, our calendar, our cadence, and our people are all going to be very clearly stated.
Synchronized, okay.
And that's nice because our website's gonna be up in about a week and a half from now. So I'm working a lot right now getting that built out. I'm really pleased. We have training tomorrow from those folks, and we'll have a nice snazzy calendar and a way for you all as well as the public to get a lot more information than what you're able to get right now.
Okay.
So the Parks Committee, we used to have monthly meetings when Rick Combaum was here.
Yep.
And then when Steve got here, it was kind of like hodgepodge.
Yeah,
Whenever somebody deemed we needed a meeting, and the same thing with Public Works. But they always found time to do the public, the maintenance, or not the maintenance, but the finance committee.
personnel and finance.
You could always make time for that, but the rest of it just went by the wayside. So I'd like to see mandatory every other month or something at least. Check in and say, hey, there's nothing going on. Great, okay, wonderful. But the rest of us, we see things and we don't have a say in it. So,
We're in alignment, 100%.
well, I appreciate the council people, but they're on everything, and which is wonderful, but they're taxed to the point, how much gets done
Exactly right.
because of that.
You're exactly right. So what I'm doing right now is I'm really pushing for an outreach effort to bring more community members onto our committees. Second, there are two types of committees, standing and ad hoc. Standing committees have a monthly cadence, and I will stand by that. It's really up to the administration and the leadership of the city to make sure that those meetings happen. Hence the change that you just noted between Hanbaum and Martinenko. My objective is to make sure that all our standing committees happen every single month, and we'll continue to do so. And again, that calendar is going to be out, so you'll see what committees are coming up months ahead of time as well.
Well, that's good.
Yes, sir. And also, you all are on the list to receive those updates. When committee meetings are held, now that you all have emails, you'll start getting emails about every single committee, council, work session, everything. The planning commission ones are the ones you have to come to. But if we see you walk in during a committee meeting or a council meeting, that would be great, right? And you can if you know about it.
Yeah, it helps.
Sure does.
You have your email set up?
Well, I have it set up and it gets forwarded to my AOL account automatically.
And you,
I have not the Monroe Gov, the new one. That's been problematic. I haven't looked at it in the last week.
I haven't.
But,
been able to
Didn't we
find
set it up or no?
Well, we didn't quite get there. It put me in a loop.
I had the old Monroe one, but the new one that you sent out, I have not. I have to, I guess, disable the old one and then get the other one.
Why don't you
into
guys
Outlook
come
or
on in and
something.
visit with me? There are a couple of counselors and other folks who had some trouble. Just come on into the city. I'll get you set up first time on my computer, show you what you need to do. There's an app you have to download onto your phone. There's no other way around it. So there's a few steps.
That's where I got stuck.
Come on in and visit with me. I'll get you done in 10 minutes.
Who has done it for city council? We can bug
Me.
them too.
I've done it for all of them.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, every one of them. With the exception of a couple.
So they
Harry,
can't help. us.
Harry nailed his down. He's the
Okay.
IT guy, right? So
Right,
he was
right.
like, hey, I've got it all
Let's go
going.
hang out with Harry. We'll get our phone. We'll get our
Yeah, talk to
email.
Harry.
All right.
So the planning commission role on this is to serve as a lead advisory body for not only city council, but also the public, right? Folks are going to be asking you guys about land use stuff. We want to draft goals, objectives, and measurable outcomes over the next 1 to 2 months. And we're going to coordinate with city council, park committee, economic development committee, and public works. So you guys aren't going to be operating in a vacuum because the value of the information coming out is going to be as good as the information coming in if you're not connected to all of these groups, which is what we were getting at just a few minutes ago. So I'm going to make sure that the agendas and the outcomes and deliverables of all of these groups make their way back to you so you know what's going on. That's also why you get your agenda a week ahead of time, so that you'll have that full week to meaningfully read what it is we're going to talk about, rather than lobbing it to you 24 hours ahead of time and saying you read it, right? Like, you know everything, I'm sure. Right? That's hard. That's a difficult thing to ask of you. So I want to do a little activity. I want to know about your areas of interest. And I'm going to be writing this stuff down. I want to identify where your expertise or passion is. And we want to look at some of these themes that I have listed here, but this is not an exhaustive list. If you want to add other things to this list, we can absolutely do that. And this information is going to make its way to City Council for the work session next week. So this is how we're communicating back and forth, just like I did after our last meeting. So I'm interested, I wanted to go over a couple of the possible areas to include. These are things that I've pre-populated. I want to hear your thoughts. So I'll just list them out first. So land use and growth management, how we use our land now and how we think about doing so in the future. Our housing and neighborhoods, the look, the feel of them, their future growth patterns. Transportation and connectivity. I know we've done some efforts on multimodal transportation, so bikes, walking alongside vehicles. We're thinking a little bit about what networks and what streets work best for that kind of stuff. If we had money, where would we put down biking paths or other sorts of things? Economic development. This is really looking at the Highway 99 corridor, the businesses that come into our city, what we're going to do with those abandoned vacant sites like the Paulson site or the Brickyard. Public facilities infrastructure. We start to think about where we want development to go. What kind of infrastructure do we need to get over there if we're going to do high density, right? If you want to do an apartment building so that other areas of the city don't see that kind of development, if you want to put the higher density over in area X, well, we need to be thinking about the infrastructure to have that happen. It needs to be in line. Parks, recreation, and natural systems. So you all probably know a lot about the work that John's been doing with the Longtom Watershed Council. That's a natural system conversation that comes directly into parks and recreation, some of the other things we're talking about. And then the community resilience and emergency preparedness. This is one that we really haven't focused on much in the past, right? But when an emergency hits, you want to have those plans in place. And it all ties into where our public facilities are, where our infrastructure is, where it's susceptible, where we should be financing upgrades seismically or otherwise. So these are some of the things I've listed out. I'm going to stop talking. I want to hear what you're interested in. If it's one of these, great. If it's something else, throw it out there.
All of them seem really important.
Well, let's start with parks and recreational and natural systems.
Okay.
If you go to our parks right now, this is the only one that's really friendly for children.
The one right next to us.
Right here.
Yeah.
Everything else has nothing.
Tell me about that, Tim, Commissioner Eastridge.
Let's look at this one over here. What has it got? It's got a rest area that finally went in. So you got bathrooms, have a long table, which is great. You got a ball field that's the locks are on the gate, so you really can't use it. And other than that, you know, you got ducks in the sewer lagoon. You know,
So what I'm hearing from you is accessibility and aesthetics.
well, the other thing is trying to get over there on this bridge. If you walked over, it's not ADA accessible, and you know, luckily the traffic has gone down to 25 miles an hour. There's nothing worse than having a semi right next to you, and you just feel all this sway on the bridge. Used to be a great place to go fishing down there, but we put in a water intake area, and then the rest of the area, it's all filled with blackberries. There's just nowhere to basically go down and drop a line.
Yeah.
So I think in that area, I mean, it's great to kind of know where we're at now, but it seems like your question really has to be, what do we envision that's going to, what are the things we have to start envisioning now that we want to get to, starting from where we're at, but where do we want to go? And that question has to tie into what do we want housing in neighborhoods? What kind of, how big do we want to get? How much space do we need to have open for parks? What kind of parks do we need? So I think that's a process we're talking about trying to get into.
I agree with that, John.
Starting out with what we have a good idea what it is, but what do you think the community needs to meet the vision statement we're currently working with? If we revisit that vision statement, it may give us more direction.
I think I agree with all of that, but I would like to, it seems to me that TJ is trying to just make a list of and identify which members of this group are going to focus on which particular kinds of efforts, rather than getting bogged down in the actual details of each one of those efforts right now. So it sounds to me that Tim is passionate about the parks subject, which makes sense because I've seen you talk about it in the Parks Committee. So
I've
you're,
been on the Parks Committee
Yep,
for
yep.
years.
I also would like to say that in past meetings, you've also expressed interest in the infrastructure, and you're also interested in the emergency preparedness with respect to the fire department and access for fire engines and everything on each one of these streets. And so to me, that if I was going to profile you, I would say that would be your personal emphasis. Does that sound about right?
He nailed it.
Okay, Tim, now you do Torrance.
No.
Parks, infrastructure, emergency preparedness, public safety. You all really know each other pretty well. That is good.
Well, I mostly know Tim because he's an area that he's a important.
Kind of outspoken kind of guy.
Well, he's a very interesting dude and he's well dressed. He's got tuxedo on.
And you're right, but both of you are right, but also Tim, I appreciate the content. We will have time to get down into the granular details.
Mhm.
Because as we go down this process, once we get done figuring out the outline, then we start doing that work. Right now, we're at that 50,000, maybe 30,000 foot view, trying to make sure we get all of you aligned with topics that you're really going to want to sink your teeth into. And I feel like we're going to have a much better park system with you on it for certain.
The problem is, this is not new.
I'm aware.
None of this is new.
I'm aware.
I've heard this so many times in action form, and then it just dies.
Yeah, I'm aware. So this is what happens a lot of times at local governments, and it's a problem that's identified all over the country. You start a process, you have well-intentioned, but you don't end up making it to the finish line. I will be bringing us through that process. I've worked in the private sector for a long time, and my job has been to make sure that we put the bow on the top of the project. We're going to be doing that here. We need to. It's the only way that we're going to get our comprehensive plan to align with our land use code, which must happen. It's the only way that our parks plan and our transportation system plan is going to speak to those pieces. Because if they don't, we won't get funding. We won't get grants, and we'll continue to remain in the position that we're in right now. I'm not going to let that happen. I came on board to solve this problem. The only way we're going to do it is together.
Well, along those lines, I can speak about some of my background. So my
Great.
professional background is in graphic design
Mhm.
and marketing and developing graphics and videos and communications media to support advertising and marketing efforts. I have done some of that stuff around here in Monroe over the last few years. I have done stuff on behalf of this public body in terms of helping to do outreach for the 1135 project and participating in actually on the ground hours talking to the public about these issues. So not only creating presentation materials, but also facilitating and being a part of those conversations. So I'm interested in those kinds of efforts. I have talked with people in the streets about their concerns about growth here in Monroe, and they ask me specific questions. They talk about gentrification. They talk about these topics that I have some knowledge about, but I can't really speak completely intelligently about. So it would be worthwhile, I think, to help kind of develop maybe some kind of workshops or some way of actually sharing and communication and dialogue about that with the public. So that's one thing I'm interested in doing. Also I'm interested in the parks because since I live in town, I walk the streets of this city all the time. So I know all about where all the parks are, and I have experienced a lot of the same foibles that you're describing just on a daily basis. And I can imagine how they could be improved from a kind of a visual and design perspective. So I also worked in an experiential design firm in Portland where we were doing 3D work we would do big, I worked with architects who would develop these spaces. And so I'm familiar with doing kind of open-ended workshops with people to kind of help develop design. And so that's one thing I'm interested in doing. And I am also interested a little bit in the emergency stuff, just because in the back of my mind, I can't imagine how fragile and brittle some of our kind of the fabric of our society is with respect to, major disasters. So I could imagine being part of like helping to develop game plans around those things, and also very interested in helping to mobilize volunteer workforce in the city. So I like doing work parties. We do a lot of work parties on the farm over here. So I find that if you can do it artfully, it can be a real energizing thing for people, as long as you don't tire them out and fatigue them too much.
Yep.
So,
Hey, wait, they show up once and then
yeah.
Torrin, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, pizza can really go a long way to make somebody feel like they had a good time.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've been talking with staff and the mayor also about that a little bit, where we've had some volunteers in the past, and nonprofits deal with this all the time. Like, where did they go?
Yeah.
So you have the, overburden and then the underappreciation, and we don't notice it's happening.
Yeah.
So I want to capture a couple of things that you just said. First off, I've been speaking with council about, we have all these committees. Do we need all of them? And if we were to focus on maybe creating a different type of committee, one of them might be a public education and outreach committee. And they seem to really appreciate that idea. We're going to continue talking about that more. That is where we would see some of the visuals, social media posts, presentations, activities, that kind of stuff. It's a creative committee. So look for an invitation to join that if the council chooses to move forward with it. But we'll need something like that to support this effort. So I love that you're on board to do that kind of stuff and have already. With emergency preparedness, thank you for jumping on that as well. That's a really big deal.
On that subject real quick, I don't know how it's done in other cities. I've kind of been kind of curious about it, but I imagine that, is it possible that some of it is sort of like role playing or something, where people like get in a room and we figure out who's, you're like, today we're going to have a tsunami. So who does what, is that kind of the scenario? Or
Exactly. So I spent 1.5 years. I worked on a project for City of Rockaway Beach, putting together a plan for them. We engaged the school. We went in and had activities with kids. We engaged the public, and we did intercept surveys on the beach. On there, we have all the same susceptibilities of an earthquake hitting, which, it's just going to be the same issue here. Bridges are going to go down. You're not going to be able to get to Eugene or Corvallis. We're going to be isolated and alone. The difference here is that they're going to respond to us a little faster because we're in a population center. And also there won't be a tsunami coming to wash your house away. But otherwise, we have all those same risks, and we need to address them. But yeah, we'll do all that stuff, and all that will go into our hazard mitigation plan.
That sounds fun.
Where
I'm into
did
it.
these 7 areas come from? Were they in the comp plan or what?
Yeah, these are all in the comp plan. These are all in every city's portfolio of issues to address. Sometimes there are unique topics to a city that haven't appeared on the list yet. And you might get something like that from a person who's new for a couple of months. So I was hoping you might have things to add. And if you think of them after today, that's perfectly fine too. We're still making the sausage. It's not gonna be over at the end of tonight. But not to put you on the spot, but do you have areas of interest here or ones that aren't included here?
Put spell checker.
I mean, nothing calls out. I was thinking there are, there are 7 areas. And we are 7 members on our planning commission. So theoretically, we could have 1 planning commissioner for each area.
Oh, I see where you're going. You're a logical thinker, like,
Well, I try to be, that doesn't always work.
got it.
Um,
Technically, yes. Ideally, we don't want to burden you with,
Well, we want to make sure that we line up people's interest with,
you're nailing it.
we don't want to just assign you to an area that you have no interest.
You
in.
gotta have a passion and an interest in it, and this, I mean, obviously you can participate in this commission without necessarily
Right.
emphasizing or focusing on a particular area, but I mean, some of this stuff, if it's something that you're thinking about outside of
Right,
the meetings and you should definitely sign up for something like that and be highlighted so that you can have more influence.
The reason that's valuable, and here's where I'm going with this. We're all going to be working on all of these topics. But at the end of a discussion, there might be a question or something for follow-up that's specific to our city. And somebody's got to go find the answer to that before the next meeting,
right.
right? And so if we have a liaison, if we have a person that's kind of focusing on that thing, they can go do 10, 20 minutes of research, bring what they found back to the next meeting and have a meaningful discussion about it. What are your interests? Any one of these stand out to you, one or more?
I mean, economic development, I was for a while on the BAM committee, but there's not a, I don't have a burning passion for anyone in particular.
Okay. And I'll also be sending out a little survey tool following our conversation to capture your feedback in the same way that we did for like the website and other stuff. I know a lot of you didn't receive that. But this won't be the end all be all. And the people who aren't here will have an opportunity to
Sure.
comment through that
Right. way
as well. Other thoughts or things that aren't on this list right now?
Well, to talk about what's on the list, it's like the 19 statewide planning goals are kind of mixed in all of these, right? I mean, once we start working on these, they can fall out into those statewide planning goals, which then kind of feeds into the comprehensive plan. Sort of, that's kind of the goal. I'm trying to figure what's Envision Monroe, does that allow us to develop these other kind of on the ground plans, like the comp plan and the park?
Yes.
plan? Okay. got
That's
it.
exactly right.
Okay, good. That helps.
And I'm taking the meat, you're right, you're
Right.
nailing it. The pieces of the 19 statewide planning goals that get on the ground with like infrastructure, housing, those are what we're pulling out. The first 3 are procedural, community involvement kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And goals 16 through 19 really only affect the coast.
Right.
So we're only focusing on goals 4 through like 15, essentially.
So the citizen involvement, which you talked about, isn't really on there, but that's kind of baked into the whole work.
Exactly right.
Okay. So that'll take some work. There's us doing the work, but the city involvement and then the visioning statement that we have to do in order to kind of line, it's kind of happening out there as well.
That's exactly right.
So in that light, I see land use for myself. The land use and growth management seems to tie directly into housing and neighborhoods. I mean, they're so one is kind of the vision for the town. The other is like, how do you attain that vision? So those seem to go really are so integrated, hard to separate them.
Mhm.
And I have done a lot of work in the transportation connectivity, building a connectivity plan years ago. And the transportation concept came out. There's a whole chapter in the Riverside District Master Plan about transportation throughout the whole city. That's still very relevant, I think. And actually, the economic development, I see all this stuff. So they all
Tie
tie together to
together,
economic development. And,
Right.
and
Well,
I think there's a
I
real-
can, I would have to sorry to interrupt about the economic development, but the, I also have been to the BAM meetings over the years, and I have noticed I have noticed a kind of an uninspiring level of economic development in the town. It's not that I expect that it be booming, but it also, I expect that some of the experiments that I've seen local businesses try to do would be a little bit more kind of successful in some regards, or there be a little bit more energy there. And so also there's a lot of strong desire that I've noticed, a huge appetite or passion for particular types of businesses to be here. And yet I haven't really noticed any sort of activities or behaviors to try to attract those businesses. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened. I just haven't noticed it. And so I think that in particular, that is a kind of a fraught subject that I think is probably fundamental and key to how a city, how healthy and successful a city can be. If you don't have healthy businesses in your city, then you really just have a community of houses.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't think there's been a good, healthy discussion of what economic development means and what it's.
How to do it.
Right. So I'm raising that as an area where there could be some richer discussions about economic development, what it means, and what can a city do in that arena as compared to businesses. So the reason I identified that as something I'd be interested in is trying to expand beyond the
Yeah.
debate we've had for 10 years about
Yeah,
what that is.
it's been very a kind of a sort of a stunned paralysis.
Right.
All these things are true. So we have some large sites like the Folsom site and the Brickyard. We also may expand our UGB. By the way, we did receive the $50,000 grant to move forward with that. I just received that information yesterday. And so those things are happening, right? We want to start identifying the lands where we want those things to potentially go. That's signposting. That's what I call that. You're signposting for the private sector because we don't build housing, we don't build businesses, but we can attract those things if we identify
How
them
do we communicate that?
through our comprehensive plan.
But what, I mean, are there contractors and developers out there that are looking at your comp plan? Like, how do they know? There's just random, it's a
So
market out there.
that's important. A comp plan is just a document
Mhm.
until you create visuals and an outreach campaign, which is part of your economic development component. You have to continuously be attracting businesses and attracting developers.
Yeah.
But in
I'm
order
just-
to do that, you
yeah.
have to signpost properly. You have to say our documents are inviting and we'll
Mhm.
work with you,
Mhm.
right? That's the thing we're getting to.
We're
So-
not communicating anything like that.
That's right. And so you all are
It's
gonna
zero
help,
communication.
you want to help the city think through what we're gonna communicate and how we're gonna communicate it
Mhm,
so that over the long term, we're attracting exactly what it is we want.
mhm.
And that's how you get cities that end up with this sort of leapfrog development or completely non-smart growth. We want smart growth. We want intentional growth that targets what our goals are going to be. So I appreciate that we have the Business Association of Monroe, but right, that's an independent entity outside of the city. What we have is an economic development committee and the Rural Economic Alliance and some regional partners and the CWED, the Economic Development District. There's a lot of pieces and I've been plugging into all of those. I've been going to those meetings. I will be providing that information to the Economic Development Committee and to you all. So you have the information.
When did they meet?
Which one?
Economic development.
So the city's Economic Development Committee will be on the 16th of this month. That notice will be going out soon. You all will get that invitation with that agenda. REAL meets once per month. It's a combination of all the rural cities inside of Lynn and Benton County. I've been attending those and we're members signed on to a memorandum of understanding. Then there's also the Economic Development District, which essentially is Benton County, Lynn County, a little bit of Lane County, and they think on a regional level, how do we attract big people to our area and how does it look?
Looks like a step in the really good direction.
This
To
is how you
actually
do
have a
that.
presence in a place and be communicating with somebody otherwise.
Exactly. We've been
Otherwise,
members, but this
yeah.
was the first time Monroe attended, which was nice. They were very welcoming to me.
They're like, I'll be darned.
So down here on Territorial, there's a big building, used to be the old meat market.
Okay.
And then it was
You know
the
where it's
fishing
at?
lure, the fishing
Yeah,
lure
fishing
place.
fly
Mhm,
tying thing.
mhm.
Well, now it's empty.
I think the food
Oh, yeah.
the food pantry was talking about renting it to
The
move
building?
while they develop a new building for the food pantry. So it'd be that's one thing some scuttlebutt I heard from Janice,
That's
but
good to hear.
that is that used to be a grocery store, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I remember going
yeah.
to it.
I was looking at that site, actually. It's an interesting one.
Hey,
Yeah. Um,
All right.
so moving on to,
Did you get all of your stuff captured, the stuff you're interested in?
yeah, is there
Sure,
anything I
yeah.
missed?
And one thing that you meant, the food pantry, that last item, community resilience, the food pantry and the work they're
Yes,
doing.
they were trying to
ties
do a
really
hub,
Closely to
yeah.
that. So it is the emergency preparedness stuff.
Well, they
But
they
but
got
if you have a really good emergency.
Were they going
preparedness-
for the Orem Hub grant last
they
year?
had it, and then I guess it got clawed back.
Yeah.
So they had actually been awarded to be the resilience hub for the city,
Right.
and then and then the money disappeared. It was pulled back by the government. So
I had a client that I got that for last year, same exact thing. It was federal pass through. Same thing happened with a number of grants. I had two others that same exact situation was very not good. Good to know though.
mhm.
So activity number 2, I was originally gonna break us into little small groups because I was thinking we'd have a slightly larger group, but I'm not gonna do that. I wanted to start thinking about a goal statement and supporting objectives. This gets us a little closer to the vision statement that you were talking about, and we have one in our comprehensive plan right now. I don't want to start wordsmithing lofty words just to make it sound good. Just throw stuff out there. Like if you start thinking about statements or words that represent the vision you think of 20 years from now in this city, what are they? What are the things you're seeing? What are the things you want to see?
Well, growth is always seems to be number one.
What do we mean by that, though?
Growth.
Yeah.
Just see that we can get like a grocery store in here.
Okay.
A gas station.
Those two things are
Services.
those specific two things, a grocery store and a gas station have been number one and number two of the complaints of the citizens that I hear all the time. Why can we not have a grocery store and a gas station? Like that's, so if those two things happen, that would be like game changing.
We've done the work. It's
Well, I mean, just think about it.
That's a big
I
deal.
mean, when the dollar store came in, people were like freaking out that it was finally they can go and at least go buy something that they can't just get at Dairy Mart. So it was just it was like a motion towards having access to some other retail goods. So those are the two things I have heard over and over again.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Where I built my house up in north of Tillamook, I
Yeah.
was 30 minutes, 25 minutes from the Fred Meyer and an hour from the Walmart, and we had a center market, and that was it, right? So it's kind of the same deal. I get it.
Same thing here.
So if there was some way for there to be like some kind of like a task force that's designed to go out and try to find some way to attract those businesses or make the connection to point out to them that there's like apparently 7,000 cars that drive by every day that they might stop in. So it might be it might make a big bit of difference, I think. So
Absolutely. Fun fact, the US Department of Transportation has a real-time traffic map, and you can zoom into any road
Mm.
anywhere, and it'll tell you the annual traffic counts and the real-time right now
Uh-huh.
traffic counts.
Well, there's a lot. I would say that I'd like to point out that my envisioning of the city is along the same lines as you. It'd be nice if there was at least a good central public park that kids could go to, that there was good parking by that park so that
This side of the river.
so that people who are driving by could stop and park and take their kids there, and they wouldn't have to go try to find another place to park beside the saloon or whatever.
Absolutely.
So that there would be safe pedestrian access. Right now, I see people who are crossing the 99 just to get over there to the silos, and there are log trucks that are coming through, and maybe not. It's unnerving. I don't know if there's been accidents, but it looks grim. So when the silos talked about putting in the tap room over there, we really highlighted for Steve that, and he brought it up that we need to talk with ODOT about, that would be an ideal place for there to be an intersection that will slow down traffic. So, to the point where people could actually cross across, beyond just the flashing light thing. So, I think that, I mean, I think that traffic has been slowing down and that's good, but they still kind of look at this like an artery, and that, I don't know if, there is some way to, I don't know if there's some way to accommodate that and still have people have kind of more, low-key pedestrian access. But even right now, just if you could imagine just walking around up and down the 99, it's, you know, it's slightly on the not my idea of a good time kind of pedestrian you know, scenario. Maybe coming off of 99 there'd be good pedestrian experience, but right now it's not ideal. So.
Absolutely. I walk 99 regularly. I'm either to the bank or to a coffee. I go to all the little stores, but I've gotten the sense that people don't see the speed sign.
Yeah.
I feel ya.
And it makes sense. This was, you know, this was a primary, there was a time when there was tons of gas stations here and stuff because people had to travel from California up to Washington. Yeah, so that's why there were cafes and blah, 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 because people, even more traffic was coming through here. So.
They didn't have I-5.
Right.
Yeah.
So something you all said about the grocery store, there's a term here and we can use it. You ever heard the term food desert?
Uh-huh.
That's what we have, because we have people who either can't get around or they don't have the money to drive a vehicle, even if they have one, and they need to be able to access healthy food options. We don't provide that right now. It's about health. It's about the welfare of our community. There are funds available to help us think a little bit about those kinds of efforts. I heard
if that bridge goes out, there's going to be, you know, armed fights over the Twinkies over at the dollar store. Because that's, if you can't get to Junction City, then you're in trouble.
You're absolutely right. And emergency preparedness means having things like Connex boxes full of materials that can sustain your population over a certain period of time, so you can wait for the people to arrive. Something we talked about on the coast is we'll be the 5% that gets addressed 3 weeks, 6 weeks later after everybody else is taken care of. So we got to hunker down for like a month and a half.
That's where the food bank is gonna come in,
That's exactly right.
because you can rotate the food.
Yep.
Because you can't put just stuff in a Connex box.
And it'll really be it'll be MREs. And you have to switch them out. You have to make sure you have your deadlines of when they go bad, switch them out. It's all that kind of stuff. But if you don't, you're running into the kinds of issues you're talking about. There's a wonderful book out there called 9 Meals to Anarchy. And the woman who writes that book, I'm drawing a blank on her name right now, phenomenal though. She points out all that stuff. We got to think about emergency preparedness. But I mean, back to this, I'm hearing that we want parks with safe pedestrian access, not only at the park, but getting to the park from wherever you may live, which includes safety across Highway 99. It's our economic development corridor, but it's also the corridor people just fly right through, and we need to let people know we live here. I'm hearing grocery store, gas station.
It's supposed to be
It's full moon.
it's supposed to be that, what is it, the harvest moon tonight?
The biggest, it's super
Full
moon.
Yeah, it's a super moon.
It's huge.
Just look at the moon. It is huge.
I walked parking.
Park.
We have such a problem with parking right now.
I walked Cyrus, my dog, last night. I felt like it was daytime. I could see the trees, like just perfect shadows on the ground, like the sun was hitting. Yeah, it's a bright sun, a bright moon. So parking, yes, parking. So there's a couple things to think about there, right? Parking, the requirements that we have for things like businesses and housing. That's one type of parking. But I think what I'm hearing from you is parking where people can come and stop and get out and walk around the city. Public parking, is that correct?
The way I look at it is that in a lot of smaller towns that I see, there's some kind of big attraction that is sort of a center area where people will park and start kind of branching out to the rest of the
Yes.
city. And so it makes sense to me that there be some sort of magnet like that has good, safe public parking.
You're exactly right. Because we think about, in planning, we talk about nodes, paths being the places you walk or drive, and the nodes being the places where you stop and do things. And so parking is one of those nodes if you want people to get out and walk to point B, whether that be to a restaurant or a park or whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
Right now, they have big events over at the high school and they spill out through the, over to the Paulsons, over to the library, you know, down the street and all of that. And and that's kind of, you know, periodic. It's not something that happens all the time, but down the road, if there's more kind of retail businesses here that are attracting people to stop, then parking will be an issue. So it really makes sense to, and you should see Benny's is like on a Friday night or whatever. I mean, that place is completely packed.
Absolutely.
And so there's a horse pasture right beside it. So there's some kind of thought process here where we can start to plan on, you know, making it safe for people to park.
And that ties into economic development, because if we have paid parking as a city, that's another revenue stream that becomes valuable to us. That's something to think about. And also it's a value statement. Do we want paid parking? We'll get down that road later. I don't want to go there now.
We're not there yet.
No, we're not, because we could spend,
We're
I've
not
been in
there yet.
meetings where we could spend a long time talking about just that topic. So we won't go there yet, but I'm hearing parking as an important focus for what we need to expand over the next 20 years.
So I say Red Hills just went in over
Yes.
here. So you have, 55 new homes, lots and lots of pedestrians, lots of traffic. And it'd be nice to take Coon Road and just straighten it right on out to Territorial
I agree with that.
and take it out of Orchard Street
That's right.
where all this congestion is.
I love what you're saying, because this ties into something real. We need a capital improvement plan and we need to categorize and rank those projects. That's one of those projects that would appear on there.
When you get down here to Orchard Street and 99 Fifth Street, trying to get out on that road at 7 o'clock in the morning, 6:30, it's a nightmare.
Mhm.
So unless you come over here,
And also if you had Coon go straight into Territorial, Jeannie and Fred complain all the time that people are still going 55 miles an hour by their house before they hit the stop sign.
Oh,
And they're like, they did get a speed limit sign out there to slow it down, but if there was an intersection there, then suddenly you have some natural sort of braking experience there. And also the kids that live over there can walk more safely to school. Because right now it's like, it could be an unsafe situation for kids.
absolutely.
So I don't know. Oh, that seems like a natural, it seems to me that it would just come out like right by that place you're talking about, that old building. That's the straight, if you look at it on the aerial map, that's a straight block right into Territorial. So anyway, something
Absolutely.
to think about.
Traffic calming, things like
That specific
sidewalks in the future, where we might want to extend roads, all those things. Absolutely.
So these are all like specific projects, which we've been talked about a lot. And when I look at what you have up there, it's drafting goals and objectives that could encompass these very specific projects. And I guess during the envisioning statement, when we went through that exercise with the community, you're trying to reduce all these different projects, things that people are looking for, into like, what do they mean as far as a goal? And it was, a vibrant rural community that maintains that sense of small community feel, but the need for increased services, we can define what those specifically are, maybe, but it's a town with services, not a bedroom community. That was really kind of the takeaway. We talk safe walking, safe mobility of all kinds in the city, and then straightening out Coon and a bridge, all those kind of things start falling under that as a very specific projects that go into the capital plan.
And it would be great, by the way, if there were more employers within the city limits that were not just retail, a waiter or a bartender or whatever. So
Sure.
so if there was, you talk about a light industrial sort of area that might be up there near the Brickyard, where people could have some kind of small business of some kind, that they could be operating out of an industrial space, that they could have 5 employees and, be building something and shipping them out, so that starts to make this place feel more vibrant. And I've heard people complain that there's really no place for them to actually work. I mean, honestly, so.
You're right. It's a catch-22 because right now there's no place for the current citizens to work. But for a business coming to move here, if they're going to move here, what are they going to need to do? Especially if they're of size, they're going to have to hire employees.
Mhm.
And the chances of those employees coming from outside the city are extremely high. They're going to become new residents, but the business has to think about where are they going to live,
Mhm.
right? If my employees can't live somewhere, I can't open there. So let's talk a little bit about housing. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Does density greater than single family belong in our community? Where does it belong in our community? We have some apartments already. We have created a corridor right along 99 with the intent to have higher zoning, higher building heights in that area. It's on our zoning map. I wasn't around when we thought about it, but I suspect that was part of the discussion, maybe business on the bottom and residential up top. What are the thoughts about housing?
Well, I mean, that's always one of the things that you read about on, let's talk about Monroe. People are looking for housing, they can't find housing, they're asking if anyone knows anyone that has a house or apartment to rent, looking for a 2-bedroom, 1 bed. I mean,
Mhm.
that is an issue.
Yeah, it is an issue for people.
So it's
And
got-
it also, it stymies people who, for instance, that, you know, this whole gentrification thing, it's great when they say, well, look at your how your property values are increasing. Well, that's fine unless that means that you just increase the rent on. I saw this building over here that they're repainting over there. They evicted all the people that were in this little rental just over here near the fire department. And so they got them all out and they're repainting the place. And so I'm sure that that's great, but it's not great for the people who can't live here anymore. So, and some of those neighbors get, you know, that's just another thing that makes people unhappy because they can see their neighbors being pushed out. So,
Absolutely. Gentrification is a real thing.
mhm.
And so we have to balance those things, housing affordability with economic development. That's the kind of stuff that we'll definitely want. And when I hear you say that we want to maintain a small community feel, that's what you're talking about. Because you can inadvertently create gentrification. It's happened all over the country. We did it for a couple of decades with economic development until we started to realize, oh crap, you know, we were doing this to ourselves. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's mixed housing, that
Yes.
common old phrase, mixed housing that has affordable rentals, single family homes that people want. If you want to attract people, if you attract businesses and they need people to work in those, that's going to be one kind of income block. They need a kind of housing.
It
Red
could-
Hills is almost all, you know, single family, and most of those people, a lot of those people either moved from the outside areas, it got expensive, but a good portion are people who've retired here from
Yeah.
out of state.
Yeah, the school
And- yeah.
only increased by 5 kids.
Yeah,
But there's telecommuters too. And
yeah. So mixed housing can help solve that problem. Instead of
And-
becoming a Dare Village, you have more of a mixed housing with
if it's close to the industrial stuff that we're talking about too. So if there was opportunity for small employers, I've seen it, there was places like that I saw in Portland and some of the larger places where that you'd have some kind of complex that has, you know, smaller units that are designed for rentals that are adjacent to or closer to some industrial, light industrial, not heavy industrial.
It's exactly
That's why
right.
revisiting the whole zoning is important. The different mixing of different kinds of housing, light industrial, economic stuff. You can start positioning, looking at those kind of situations. If you have a light industrial area, which we really don't have anymore, you better add some more. And then you want to zone housing around that correctly.
The Brickyard and the Loving Field are like, it seemed like very great opportunities for something like that.
All that.
But one of them is, Loving that's a great place.
It's just a
but
big flat.
The Brickyard, it has such a debit in there. You're gonna have to bring fill dirt in like crazy.
Well, I don't know, you know, I'm not an expert in those things. So I do know that there are, you know,
I've just heard it from other contractors.
but I've
They're
seen
gonna-
I've seen building, well, I mean, I've seen building done in different areas of the country in all kinds of different situations that were really, really extreme, like, and so I don't know if it's just a matter of how the terraforming works or how the erosion control works, but is it possible to, and I peered over there. I haven't actually, like, it's private property, so I don't go wandering around over there, but I mean, it's not like a strip mine pit or something to, I mean, it's,
not bad.
no, so it's, there's some terrain that needs to be kind of, but some kind of study or something about it so that we actually have some real information about what kind of steps would be taken for that to actually be worthwhile would be really helpful, rather than it just be speculation, which is kind of what we have right now.
Absolutely.
And moreover, I'd like to point out, the only people that so far that have seemed to be interested in that have been like trailer parks. So they basically want to just fill that completely up with, now that is low income housing. That's definitely fulfills the segment of creating an affordable housing scenario, but it also potentially could create like a slum situation or situations that are unpleasant for the rest of the community, you know?
Remember when the mini homes was a big thing?
Mhm. Tiny homes.
Tiny homes, those tiny homes, and they wanted to pack tiny homes in there, 200 of them or whatever.
Mhm.
Problem was, they were going to just rent out each tiny home space,
And then just put trailers in there.
but the resources that would be on the community and the city and everything else and the taxes you'd get from that
Mhm.
didn't pencil out.
Right, it doesn't add up. They were kind of taking advantage
So
of it.
how can we as a planning commission create zoning and codes to avoid those kind of things to happen?
So let me walk
And
you
to
through some.
guide those.
So I appreciate
forward.
that question because I feel like you teed it up for me. There's something called the housing production strategies. So the state of Oregon, through the Department of Land Conservation and Development and Housing and Community Services, those are two agencies that work hand in hand with one another. They have worked with a lot of small communities and large communities on different types of housing strategies, different types of housing. And when we talked about mixed housing, one thing to highlight is we're talking about density, right? So that's single family versus multifamily, but we're also talking about mixed incomes. And there are things that we can do to incentivize that sort of thing. When I was in Tillamook working as their housing coordinator, we were able to bring in a lot of developers because we created a grant fund. That's something the county's interested in doing. And I had a long conversation with them while I was at the LLC conference last week, and they're interested in doing something like that, right? A lot of creative strategies, but the important thing is for us to say, what kind of housing do we want? And one of the exercises I'll bring before you when we start getting into the meat of this thing, because we're still at the 50,000 foot view, we want to get moving, and we will. But when we do, we're going to start looking at those housing production strategies and picking the ones we like versus the ones that we don't. And one of the options in there is what you just described. There's nothing wrong with that in certain communities, but it doesn't fit in every community.
And I would also suggest that it would be worthwhile for us to just kind of help envision that, to
Yes.
literally visualize it. Let's render what that kind of looks like so that we can all work with the community and say, is this the kind of thing we're all talking about? Yeah, that's the kind of thing we're all talking about.
That's
And
exactly
then
right.
down the road, your developers are gonna kind of align with that as
Because
opposed to.
we're signposting to them.
Right,
This
right.
is what we want to see.
That's
And a
right.
developer, everything's about time for them. If they see that what they want to do is what you're open to, it's gonna grease the
Right,
scales.
right.
So I want to, in the interest of time, I want to encourage you to think about these things a little bit more. We got the juices flowing with a great conversation tonight. You will receive an email from me that includes a link to a survey. It'll take 10 minutes of your time, maybe 15, if you take a little extra. And I'd like you to just go through some of these things. Think there will be some open-ended questions as well as some hierarchy ranking questions. And at the end of that, it's going to give us a lot of information to start thinking about what the city should start doing next, what areas of interest you all individually have, and we'll start putting the pieces together.
Sounds good.
Is there anything for the good of the order that you would like to add to this discussion before we move on?
When's the last time we had a land inventory done
A buildable lands inventory?
in wetlands?
So yeah, so we haven't had really either of those things in a pretty long time. Our wetland inventory, there's really no need to do that regularly and significantly.
Well, every 5 years you can do that.
Yep, and we haven't,
But with all this building that's been done and all the infrastructure and the drainage, is it wetlands anymore?
Yes, there's going to be significant changes. There are areas that didn't used to be wetlands that maybe, and there are areas that maybe were wetlands that aren't anymore. Topography has a significant influence on that. The county is going through a risk mapping exercise right now. We are engaging in that process. I've been working with them over the last couple of months, and at the end of that process, we will have a completed risk map for the entire county. There's a lot of stuff going on with wetlands right now. And it's going to force all of us to get that updated information. As far as a buildable lands inventory, any city under 10,000 in population isn't required to do a buildable lands inventory, but we can voluntarily do one, and we have in the past, and that is something that we will do again because it's required for some funding that we're interested in. It's going to help us identify not only housing, but also industrial lands that oftentimes gets left out of the BLI process. It's in there, but we just oftentimes ignore it at the local level. And a good rule of thumb is most cities need to have about 30% of their property industrial and commercial if you're going to not foist all of the cost of infrastructure on your tax base of housing, right? I mean, the only way to put those fees on larger entities is to have businesses. So we have to do a BLI for both of those components. We'll talk about that more.
One thing we didn't say before that just occurred to me is and something that Todd Nystrom was talking about was a hotel or a lodge of some kind. So that's something that hasn't really been discussed, but having some sort of accommodation for visitors feeds into kind of helping tourism, but also just our public base having some place that they can stay. I mean, I've run into that issue in the past.
We're ripe for it too. We're in a great location for something like that. Thank you, Torrin.
Yeah.
I seen a thing on YouTube the other day about these bed and breakfasts,
Oh yeah.
and in some places they are kind of falling off the table, let's say, because the cost factors and people have bought these things, and then the interest rates and stuff has just come so high that they have to sell.
Yep.
So we haven't got that.
The money doesn't pencil out, basically.
It never penciled out.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to go to a $500 a night place when it's only
It's
$100
you.
a night.
Just you.
Maybe.
Some of it has to do with the economy, right? Same thing with Airbnbs, and there are macroeconomic forces that take very long periods of time to work themselves through and involve geographies much larger than us, usually on the national or international level. We can simply signpost what we want. And that's the best that we can do, and continue to work towards those efforts, regardless of what the economy is doing. So I wanted to go ahead and just let you all know a little bit of a draft timeline, and then we'll pop over to a couple of our agenda items that I wanted to focus in on tonight in the interest of time. Really quickly, so we're drafting goals and objectives. We're working through that now. You will receive an email from me with a link. In November, I would like to, for our council commission joint work session, talk a little bit more about that, get council's buy-in, have a good discussion. And at the end of that, we should be able to really ground ourselves in, this is what we're doing, this is how we're gonna do it, and this is when we're gonna do it. And by December, we want a vision framework document. And that can include much of what we've had for our vision documentation before, but it needs to capture all these things we're talking about. And then what we want to do is by January for council to adopt these guiding principles so that you all know that the work you're doing in between those work sessions every quarter are what council is directing you to be doing. I think we've done a good job. We have nailed down the 5 or 7 goals with supporting objectives. I've been able to pull those things, those threads out of what you've talked about tonight. In my email, I'll be capturing those to make sure I didn't get anything wrong, so you can clarify for me, or make sure that there's something that you just remembered you want to add in. And I got a good summary from you as well in terms of what your focus areas are. Again, we'll put the final details through that survey process. I appreciate your time on this because these are nebulous, difficult topics that feel like you can never really get your arms around, but you do it piece by piece, and we're doing it in a methodical way.
I'd also like to point out that I appreciate this process because we're getting into some tangible things as opposed to just kind of vague platitudes or just kind of sometimes in our planning, it's definitely something you can support, but it's actually so open-ended and vague that it really doesn't feel like it's something that's actionable. And whenever we're talking about the nuts and bolts of how do you actually do business development, rather than, yes, we support it, let's all do business development, it's heartening to see that we're actually getting into real tactics. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thank
that's
you.
the thing, we've never been challenged to this degree,
I appreciate that, and I know that.
and that's fine. I like a good challenge.
And also that will come along with training. I'm going to be providing over the next several months, a lot of the things you need to know about some changing legislation, even if you knew everything up to this date. Some changing legislation and also some things that you might want to know again that you've been told in the past about planning. We'll actually be talking a little bit about that here in a few minutes. I'm gonna pivot over to the agenda. The other item on the agenda was city-owned properties, and we were gonna look at our September exercise. We've had a really robust discussion on our last topic, so in the interest of time, I want to suggest that we table that and maybe just get a quick 2-minute discussion on anything you may have done between last month and this month, any clarifying questions. But I think that if you were to continue sort of looking at those properties and identifying ones of interest to you, that could be helpful between then and now. Is there really any meat here for you all to grab onto?
I found it really helpful to like take off the list things that we can't sell,
Good.
like the sewer treatment, I mean, the wastewater, the treatment plant, the park, where the pump station is, where City Hall is. Now, if City Hall may not be standing long, then do we keep the piece of property on the other side of it? Once the water tank, we can't sell the water tank. If we could take all those pieces of property off the list that we need to hang on to, then we can start looking at some of these pieces to say, is this piece of property valuable to us
Right.
for a park later on? Or is this really not anything the city can ever really capitalize on?
Exactly.
So that would be helpful. And the GIS thing is super slow for me until I get some kind of a fiber in my house. Every time I'm just ready to go zoom in, it would bump me back out.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
had a little hard time getting some of these smaller pieces. So maybe those would be pieces to go look at. Is a piece of land that would be marketable or could serve another city purpose that's not serving right now.
Doesn't the city have an inventory list already of
Yeah.
what they are?
Well, we have it and we looked at it last time,
Right.
but it's,
You can't tell nothing off that map.
well,
Well, that's why I said-
I can,
I got on the GIS too, and it's pain in the butt.
I know that I can't speak for the county's GIS, but I did express my thoughts on some improvements.
I think that, to your point, I mean, frankly, I can tell you right now that there's, this many. We can point out the ones that are sort of up in the air and you could just start discussing them without it being too much of a issue. There is still the big question mark about the Nystrom, spring up there. So that's the biggest, most, kind of fraught, I guess, outlier, and could potentially be an important piece of the puzzle for, like you mentioned, trading with Nystrom or something so that we can actually get access to some other property that he has, because he's got so many spots that he's really not, doesn't seem to be developing or activating right now. But I mean, right now, we could just identify them if you like and just zero in on the target ones.
If you'd like to do that, I'm open to that.
Okay,
Well, the Kyle Springs and the Belknap Springs and this,
yes,
where the haunted house was,
that,
those are all outside the city limits.
That's right.
They really have no value to the city. I mean, even the well over here has no value to the city anymore. It never did when they drilled it, because the water you got out of it was contaminated. And then Kyle Springs and the Belknap Springs, they don't put out enough water to do the city any value, so.
well, yeah.
I mean, it's great old growth timber, but it's also old growth timber that's got problems.
Yeah, and it also, I guess it depends. I mean, the whole issue about well, I don't know. I think we'd kind of fall into a little bit of a rabbit hole about the how useful the water is, and, I mean, you talk about the disaster preparedness. I don't know what happens if you need some other additional water access and
We
you've got
want to
two
think about the
springs, so-
future. Securing water sources that we currently own is an incredibly intelligent thing to do. Not for right now, but for 20 years from now. And I'm an advocate for thinking intelligently about maintaining those sources. There are communities that haven't been able to expand, but for the opportunity to tap into those pre-existing sources. And if we have them there, you might think about keeping them. If they're contaminated, it may not be valuable, right?
Well,
Those are the
those-
questions we'll think about.
Well, those springs are great. I mean, I've been up there and taken a look at it. I mean, the springs coming straight out of those little hills up there that's as close to rainwater as you're gonna.
So that's
get.
different, yeah. So we have the groundwater and then we have the springs coming out of the hills. The groundwater is gonna have some nitrate contamination.
Yeah,
In
that's,
some areas, there will be some arsenic, but that's not going to be widespread. I worked with Department of State Lands and DEQ when I was finishing up my master's on the groundwater management area in this whole region. And the nitrates are not so significant that we can't treat for them.
so, I think from my standpoint, I think it would be worthwhile if we just zero in on the question mark properties.
Let's
Like
go for it.
you're talking about, and that we don't necessarily answer the question, but just say, these particular things should be a topic of discussion.
Okay.
And figure out how we're gonna actually accomplish that. So if you look at your map, these two that are just the haunted house, and then this other little portion that's just to the side of the city park that's outside of the city limits, those are two big question marks.
Mhm.
They represent, frankly, a lot of, I mean, this is a lot of actual like square feet comparatively.
Is that where the dump was you're talking?
I'm talking about these two little pie slices here
Yeah,
that
it's
are,
not- It looks like the transfer station is one of them.
Yeah.
Yep. So
so,
that property I've been digging into in detail over the last several weeks. There are some challenges on that property that we'll work through, but I agree that that's one to look at.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know, I think that both of those could make a lot of sense to sell to somebody, make it, especially if you could focus if there was somebody who could develop it in a way that would help kind of provide some kind of service to us, I think it would make a lot of sense.
Got it.
So the one wedge, the haunted house is one tax lot. And there's about, what, 7 or 8 acres that's,
This
And
little,
more of it.
yeah,
that little bit to the side,
well, but it's actually two tax lots.
2 lots, I see, yeah, I
And
see.
one is mostly the wetlands, it's like,
The oxbows.
yes, one is the oxbow, and then there's a 1 acre tax lot, which is the house, the abandoned house. So those would be two separate topics to talk about.
I think the oxbows, we were gonna do a water park. We were thinking about doing like water slides.
I think that's what we're talking
FEMA won't mind, right?
Kind of low budget, redneck
It's a
style,
natural
redneck style.
habitat. I get it.
And then, it occurs to me that behind the lift station we've already been talking about might be the ideal location for some sort of like, city park that fits what Tim's, profile that he's describing.
But also, didn't that Nystrom own some of that?
He just towards the 99. So it's just, he owns that little segment right beside the bank, and then behind that, I think
Right.
is the.
And
is
that's
the-
right next to the pump lift station.
Yeah, right by the lift station, yeah. So then, I think that is a high value property. There's also a question mark that I've always kind of had about this little segment that's just opposite the park on the Reservoir Heights over here.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just down from the old tanks. So if you look at it on the map, there's
Where the road is?
the road goes right in between it, and then there's a little segment right there that just kind of like abuts. And that's full of,
They're all deeded, but you can't get rid of them unless you have to use it for public use.
yeah, Yeah.
And then where the old water tanks are, they have to be used for public, water storage area or something. There are special things in the deeds.
It just seems to me that within the whole parks and recreation sort of framework, right now, those are full of poison oak and English ivy, and not something that somewhere can, but you could potentially incorporate that into your parks
Absolutely.
experience in
So
some
was
way.
the bottom part of the park, that was
Yeah.
the same way. It all looked the same way.
Yeah, so that's
You
a,
got a bulldozer in there and you
that's
cleaned it out.
that's a step in the right direction, but right now, I also noticed that hardly anybody ever uses that particular park. So if there was some way that we
They
could
do it now.
activate it,
They like to go out and get the stars,
inspiration point.
inspiration point. Well, you go up there, I go past it all the time, so I see.
Of course you
people
do, yeah.
Park there, but, who knows what they're doing?
We also, at one point, so there's a really good dog park in Portland, and by Mount Tabor, that's more in that kind of rough, like if you fenced all that in and had that be a large dog park, it would be something that would be a lot more active perhaps, because people walk through there, you gotta take
It's
dogs out.
already fenced. You
Well-
can take out 2 of those, water tanks, leave the big one for
Yeah,
emergency.
and then you have these they already have cool seating out there, but, so you're just
So is this
hanging out
being-
with your dog.
Is the point is that piece should be taken off the list of potential selling or be included?
Sounds like it
in-
can't be.
Sell it. You
Can't sell, okay.
because
So
The
that, so
deed.
at
the
this
city
point,
was going to sell it and have houses put on it.
so that would be a piece you could take off the
Yeah.
list. because
Potentially. So we want to identify, so what we don't want to do is assume, like, I know that you have that knowledge.
No,
and I
that's
know that
fine.
that's probably true. It's almost 100% accurate.
And that's good to get on this paper. So
Yep.
you don't have to keep going after this.
But what we're gonna do is after we start identifying the properties that we want to drill down in on.
Yeah.
We're then gonna drill down.
Yeah.
Right, and
It's
then we're
just
gonna
nice to
start.
have, like, yeah, there's a column here that said, what's the plan? You know, so that we
Well,
know,
right
we
now,
kind of have
yeah,
with a plan for
You
them.
gotta Start
Yeah.
at the 50,000 foot view. You gotta start to kind of what John's talking about, the things that we just knock out because they have a public purpose or they don't, right? And then you start
Yeah.
thinking about the ones that are really gonna be
Mhm.
valuable to us.
So, right, the things we can't sell, that's what I'm saying, get those off the list.
Yep.
This lot we can't sell,
Mhm.
the city hall we can't sell.
Because you think the point is just to try to sell properties. Is that the idea? Just to
No,
figure
no,
out the ones that could be sold?
Well, it's not just selling though, right? That's not the only
Yeah.
purpose for this.
I'm saying, anything we can't sell, get off the list, so we don't have to worry. I don't have to go through this anymore. to try to sell
No,
them.
that's not my
So,
intent
yeah,
here.
No, I'm not, that's what I'm saying, that's why I like, get everything we can't sell off the list. Anything that's questionable that may have potential to sell, or that we want to talk about as being valuable to the city, keep on the list. And then we can go piece by piece through that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I was trying to
Yeah.
do, is just
Yeah.
to highlight the things that seem to be that we should highlight as
Yes.
an area of opportunity for us. The other ones are not something that we need to even worry about.
So are we gonna
that's
do,
it.
could we do something with it? That's one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And if we can, whatever that might be,
Then we. pull
that's
off the
something to
list.
keep on our list of interests.
Yeah.
Is it something that's deed restricted or has no marketable value as a result? Well, that's another one that we're not gonna really spend a lot of time honing in on. I'm really thinking about 2 things here. What properties do we want for future uses? This gets back to our Vision Monroe. Do we want to park somewhere? Would that happen to be potentially one of the properties we own? Would there need to be connectivity for a path that just so happens to hit a piece of property that we own? Probably don't want to sell that, right? We start to think from that really strategic perspective. Does it have a value to us in some way? And if it doesn't, well, would we possibly want to sell it and why?
The house over here off Ash, no, it's not Ash, it's Kelly and Sixth. It's the north house, just past the parking lot or whatever you call it. Their back door is the property line. Their back door is the property line. Then the city owns the lot. Right
They
behind
owns
it.
their backyard. Yeah.
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 That needs to be addressed for them.
That's that little blue box right there.
I mean, even if you split the property in half and gave them, or not gave them, but sold them half a lot, and the rest you gotta keep for sewer pipes and whatever, because they're right in that area. So you can't get rid of that either.
Were you aware of that?
No, I was gonna ask you if you wouldn't mind sending me an email. That's gonna be something I have to address administratively.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do that.
Steve was all over it, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, we did discuss it a couple of times and said that it was a problem. I mean,
I
it's,
think we came aware that their deck would be a great place for a party, the city party, because it's on city property.
no, we were gonna say that's where we're gonna tell them that's where the next sewer treatment plant was gonna be,
Yeah.
put. It was right in the middle of their backyard. But-
Dude,
But no,
There's a
we
lot
were-
of stuff that I know.
but there was some conjecture that perhaps this was an issue for whenever they bought the property, isn't there some kind of insurance that they have to do to somebody has to pay to make sure that if there was lot line disagreements that down the road someone is, because basically they were sold a bill of goods. Somebody said, look at this great house with this cool backyard. And they're like, oh, cool, I'll buy this thing, as opposed to the real estate agent saying, by the way, that's not your property. So
go to escrow, they-
somebody is supposed to be able to, somebody is liable.
So what
And
you
I don't know
have-
who it is. but-
It's called buyer beware.
Okay,
When you buy a piece of property, you need to hire somebody that includes your title company, which you have to have,
title
and a
company.
land use consultant.
Title company. They're the ones who should be on the
And a
hook.
land use consultant, if you're smart about it, because if you're going into a place and you get the sense that the city doesn't really know what they have or don't have,
Yeah.
you want somebody who does. And you have a lot of places in the city right now where this is a problem. I lived out in Rockaway Beach, I lived in a house where the property actually crossed the property line. The house was in the middle of the property line.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
this stuff happens.
Yeah, it seems like it would be, so those in the map, those two little guys, those do need to be resolved. Those
Got it.
two little spots that we were in the middle of a parking lot is on the other side.
Yeah.
So right beside the dollar store, and across from that is that little spot there.
But you got sewer pipes going under there.
Mhm.
Major stuff. You can't really get rid of it.
No, you can't.
Or
And
you can have an easement, but then people can't build on it anyway.
that's correct.
I mean, that's frankly, that's basically it in terms of the place, things that need to be discussed. Well, I mean, actually, right beside that park, there's a disagreement about, remember that lady there's a lady up here on the end of this, on Main, who their driveway is owned by the city. And she was freaking out because the post office lady wouldn't drive her Jeep up there to deliver any packages because it's unsafe, and that's actually city property, and that the city wouldn't do anything to. Yeah, so those two little tiny blocks right beside the reservoir park should be looked at, but I mean, honestly, this isn't really like,
There's not a much.
it's not much to really deal with.
Never has been.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
But what you gotta keep.
Yes, and we want to be smart, right? We don't pull the trigger on any changes until we've got a fully baked plan. But I appreciate the work that you're doing. Kyle Springs, Belknap Springs, Haunted House, the transfer station, behind the lift station, possible park, and the two properties next to the reservoir.
See, the Belknap, I think.
did
it's
you
the
have,
Belknaps.
sorry, on your list? Go back to, so you had the lift station, but you didn't have the two little tiny parcels right near the dollar store. Do you have that?
Oh, well, I got the two parcels next to the reservoir. There is that, no, right next to the dollar store. That's.
Those two little tiny parcels we just
Gotcha,
talked
gotcha.
about, the guy's backyard, and then the little one that's in the middle of the parking lot.
Yeah,
That's where the
gotcha. I did
sewer
miss
is.
that one.
Hey,
Okay.
Torrin, what's this piece? That's the school, is that city property?
This right here,
Yeah.
that was the library,
Oh, okay.
but it's no longer an issue.
Okay, and how about this piece here? Is that in Red Hills?
Yes, that's that cool, nature park.
And that's owned by the city, that big piece?
Yeah, I guess
Okay.
so. And
So
the,
that-
and the two little walkways that lead into it.
I don't ever see anybody in there, but I sit in there with my dog sometimes.
So that,
That's a cool little.
yeah,
oppor-
and that really couldn't be, that's wetland, so. it really
Yeah,
couldn't be-
and that could totally, from the Parks Committee perspective, that is a great opportunity. It's in the middle of the Red Hills,
Yeah,
that
so I
little
get,
park.
this initial selling all the property came up as an emergency way of getting money for the new water intake. A new,
But you
a
can't
new,
sell that either.
so I'm,
No.
it-
Nothing
this-
can be sold, really.
Yeah, so that's my point. It originally came up, sell everything so we can do our water treatment plant. We could never raise enough money to do the water treatment plant anyway. And there's never discussion about any of this property as having other more alternative uses,
Got it.
long-term uses. I felt like I just walked into a firelight set, you know, like,
That's-
liquidate, you know.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. That is what
Yeah.
I'm hearing.
Yeah.
It's a bad strategy and doesn't account for the fact that many of these things already have uses
Right.
and some of them could be definitely very helpful for
But
other.
I like the separating
strategies.
those things we absolutely cannot sell and those things that need some a deep
Discussion,
dive
yeah.
into.
And y'all, I know this is not lost on you because this is your community.
Yeah.
But the decisions that we make today will hook the next city administrator and the one 20 years from now to whatever decisions we did make. Right? So we need to think about what we're doing for the people who are going to be here and taking what we've left them to carry something forward. I can tell you as somebody who's absorbed and just taken as given what I inherited, you know,
Mhm,
I might have done something different.
mhm.
You guys have that opportunity now.
Cool.
So, gosh, I just lost my thought. The Belknap Springs, that's a 3-acre square parcel or something like that up there, but it's landlocked.
Yeah, it's,
There's no way to get to it.
although Nystrom did acknowledge there is a right of way.
That's not the end of the world, right?
No, it's not the end of the.
It's a
world.
flag lot. And you know, if it doesn't have accessibility, it's a flag lot. We have issues with flag lots all over the place. You can resolve that. And the question is, do we want to? Or do we want to think about some other use? But here's what I'll do, right? So the next step is to take this subset of those properties that we've just talked about, and I will get down to the 10,000-foot view on those for our next meeting. I will bring to you a layout of each one of those properties.
Shooting slowly.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You got to start at the high level so that you don't miss anything. And when you close in closer to the ground, we know that we're working with the things that we thought about previously.
I think that Linda wants to stay in the she wants to stay in suborbital level, yeah.
I love working with groups. I've taught university level, and you have some people that love
Yeah.
to stay high. You have some
Yeah.
people that want to go straight into the weeds. And that's what makes a good group, to be
Sure.
honest with you.
We're a great group.
Yeah.
You are. I'm having fun, to be honest. So I will take these properties and I will bring these to planning commission next month with the map, with some information about the deed of records. I'll pull all that information so that we can look at them in detail. You can have a lot of granular stuff.
I love it.
Okay.
Well, Belknap Springs also is what, 5 miles out of town,
It is,
at least.
yeah. It's, well, is it 5 miles?
It's a long way.
It's more, maybe 3.5, something like that. It's a little up the Cherry Creek.
The point is, the amount of water you're gonna get out of that, anything,
Yeah,
isn't, it's gonna
Well-
have to go to the treatment plant.
well, think
It's
about,
not gonna be like it used to be where they just drop it in the tank.
Yeah.
well, think about a couple of different scenarios.
All right, y'all.
Yeah,
I've got,
be an interesting conversation down the road.
Absolutely.
and following next month, right, we won't know everything about each property when we walk out of that meeting, just to let you know now. But what we will have is a good conversation based on the information I provide you, and we'll walk away with that with a little more knowledge and a
I like
little
it.
more of a plan to give to council so that they can make informed decisions, which is what
Great.
you're supposed to do.
Great.
I know my other thought,
Yes, sir.
when they came up with this grand scheme of selling off properties
Mm-hmm.
because of the water treatment plant and all this other stuff coming at them, they had a very young council, very,
Hmm.
very young council. Some people haven't even been on it 6 months.
I see.
Harry would appreciate your conversation about that.
Yeah, well, and then, you know, Dan's been around for 10 years, but he hasn't been mayor but 4. If even if it's 4, but, so
You thought it was, maybe they were reactive, perhaps.
I thought they were very overreactive because
Yeah.
they didn't put much time into it. But when they did find out that, oh, we can't do this because of, you know, stipulations on the property,
Mhm.
and then it just died,
Well, you live and learn.
so.
Thanks for the context. My goal is to ensure that we do it right.
Oh, yeah.
Don't let things drop, you know? Okay, so what I wanted to talk with you about on our next agenda item is just to discuss our land use forms and application materials currently and recommend some revisions A lot of this does happen administratively, but I need your guidance. And I need to make sure that what we're showing to the public is what we want to be doing. We will come back to this next month. I don't want to spend a bunch of time past our normal end point tonight. So I have a presentation here for you. I also have some things in front of you that you can take home and read. The first thing that you're looking at is a land use application. If this looks unfamiliar to you, it's because it is. This was buried inside of our file server and hasn't been brushed up since 2008. We should have one of these. So a general land use application form. That's just for you to see and know that it exists. The second document that has a lot of writing from me, that is outlining what we currently have, what we currently need, and some questions for you all. So when we come back next month, we can have a discussion about some of this stuff. So what I want to share with you now is my PowerPoint. We'll kind of go over some details. It covers at a high level the things you see. At what you see in that document from me is captured inside of this PowerPoint at a high level.
Okay.
This gives you reading material to come back next month so we can discuss. Okay, so right now on our website, which is being revised, there are 4 documents for people to download and use. So if a developer wants to build a house, if somebody wants to build a business, somebody wants to do something with land use, they're going to go to our planning and building tab on our website, and they're going to go, okay, let this make sense. What do I need to do? What we have is a property line adjustment or abandonment document that needs to be kept, but we need to update it because there's a lot of things in there that aren't there. We have a conditional use permit. We want to definitely keep that, but we need to modernize it. Conditional uses are something that we do, but it's not the end all be all. We have variance applications. We'll want to keep that, but we'll want to align it with a code. And we have a site design review application, which is incredibly outdated. And to the best of what I can glean is that this was maybe intended to be the original general planning application, and we just kept on adding stuff to it. Really, those are the only 4 forms on there. One of them needs to be replaced, the site design review, but we'll also need to add some other things. So here's some gaps. Tim, you got at this a little bit earlier with the mapping. We don't have a floodplain development permit. We have floodplains. If somebody wants to develop in the floodplain, there are new rules that have passed over this past year at the federal and state level that require us to have this there. And the feds and the states are looking at us with a great deal of detail right now because of a new federal lawsuit that went into place. And
What defines a floodplain?
So the floodplain is a special flood hazard area. It's the area where there's likely to, so they're mostly on the east side of our city.
Okay.
And they're mapped out by the federal government. So there's, we have special flood hazard area maps that you can identify.
Okay.
It's the area where you need to buy insurance by law
Yeah.
if you're going to buy a home within one of those areas.
Okay.
We have a temporary use application. We don't have it, but we need a temporary use application. If there's an existing structure that somebody would like to use for some other purpose, we can allow them to do that. If somebody wants to put a temporary structure or some sort of temporary function on a property, there's a process for that. There's sign permits. Right now, our sign permit is like tied into that general land use application. If you notice the title of that, it's like sign and other stuff too. We'll pull that out and make it its own permit. We need a right-of-way use. So we have a right-of-way. Oftentimes, we can allow somebody to occupy that right-of-way in perpetuity, as long as they fully understand anything they build there or do there could get ripped down by Public Works if we ever need to access those things. They could be for drainage, they could be for maintenance, for really anything like infrastructure, sidewalks, you name it. This could resolve part of the issue that we're having with that property owner, where their front door directly abuts a piece of private or public property. There's 2 ways to go about that. One is occupation, where, like I just described, you want to use it, we continue to own it, it's always going to be ours. You agree to the liability issues, but you can use it. The other one is vacation, where we say, you know what? Yeah, it's ours technically, but we haven't used it in 30 years. There's no infrastructure there. We ripped it out. We have no purpose for it anymore. So somebody can request that we vacate it. And that means we no longer need it or use it. And that leaves it open for purchasing in the future or some other purpose. We need a zoning clearance or a zoning verification form. People will often come to us and say, can I do this thing on this piece of property? And I sit down with them, or Steve sits down with them, or Michael sits down with them, and they say, yeah, sure, you totally can, but it's all verbal. There's nothing that they can take to a buyer, a seller, or to a real estate agent, prospective purchaser, if they're operating on behalf of somebody. That's what that form is for. And it stamps it, essentially says, this is what you're allowed to do per our code. Same thing with administrative review. There are a lot of processes that don't need to come before planning commission as quasi judicial hearings. We'll make sure we identify which ones of those people can just move forward with. A single family home, for example. Event or street closure permit. Now, I know we don't have a lot of block parties around here, but we might, right? That's something that we could add on. It's low on the list. It's low hanging fruit. Public notice.
What
So-
have we done before for that? Remember when we had the Monroe Festival?
I think we just did it.
Just did it.
Okay.
And if it's,
It's run by the city, so
If
they
it's
didn't
ours,
really
that's
need to have
exactly
a
right.
permit.
You
If
made a
it's ours.
proclamation.
you don't need permission, but there's a lot of individuals or organizations that would take advantage of that if they knew it was available. And guess what that ties to, you guys? Economic development.
Money.
Yeah, exactly. None of these things exist. And by the way, none of them have fees associated with them. There's a lot of money that we're leaving on the table for our planning applications that it needs to be buttoned up, and they deserve the proper amount of paperwork and attention. There is also a complaint form, and that'll tie into some of the stuff we're doing. By the way, we have a new ordinance in place, which does allow for our public works folks to address issues that they might find with the code.
We're still complaint driven.
Yes, we're complaint driven, but we now have given our public works a tool where if they see a problem and nobody complains, but it's a problem, they can address it.
Okay.
Now, it's a friendly communication first approach. We're not trying to go around hitting anybody over the head, but there are people that need it.
Code enforcement.
That's exactly right. So we have just created another tool for our toolbox to address that issue. It's still complaint driven, but also Mark can be proactive. Okay, so here's a recommended core set of documents for Monroe. So first off, we need a land use application cover sheet. That document I just gave to you, I'd like you to spend some attention on that document. That's the only one I really want you to look at. If you were to come into the city, make up a project, just invent a project. You're a developer ABC and you want to do something somewhere. What are the questions you would ask? Does this help you understand it? And if it doesn't, what's missing? I want you to think like a property owner. I want you to think like a developer or somebody building a home. Secondly, we need discretionary review, so that we need to button up our conditional use form, our variance form, and our site plan review. Administratively, we'll need the floodplain and the zoning clearance stuff, and the temporary use and mobile vendor application. There may be like food carts and things like that that might want to come into the city that activates spaces on a temporary or semi-permanent basis. That's economic development too. And then of course, public property use and development support. Those are those other things that we were just talking about. I'm providing a categorization of all the things you just saw a minute ago. This is kind of how they get categorized. Some are general, some are discretionary and administrative, some are temporary, some have to do with the public right of way, and also development support.
What's a road? Is that an acronym?
Thank you, right of way.
Right.
Yeah, right away. ROW. And that's that vacation or occupation. We can also call that the easement oftentimes too. So here's the benefits of updating these forms. We're going to reduce incomplete applications and staff processing time. We have been going through an endless loop. There are some developers I'm talking to that came through our front door in 2023, and they're still in the land use application process. It is because we simply never had a way to get them out an exit door. We didn't create the exit door. We didn't make it clear for them to understand. This is what we will do. We're going to strengthen our legal defensibility. So for you all will get this training in the next couple of months, but let me just give you a couple of dates that you need to be very, very aware of. If somebody submits an application, we have a legal obligation to tell them within 30 days, I received it and everything that's supposed to be there is there. It doesn't mean I looked at the quality or accuracy of that information. It's just a completeness check. And I must give them that notification within 30 days, or they can take action against us. Once that happens, a new timeline starts. We have 180 days to make a decision about that application, which means we now need to look at the quality of the information that was submitted. Is the wetland delineation accurate? Did they do their geotechnical study properly? All of those things. We get 180 days to look through those and tell them you're good to go, or here's the specific things that you missed. And then they get 120 days to fix those things if they haven't already. So 30 to tell them we got it and you're good, 80 to get them out the door, and 120 to let them fix things. And then it's in the county's hands. The county handles all building permits. So for legal defensibility, we need to have these documents buttoned up so that we don't end up with some unsavory lawsuits.
Is this process public? So for instance, like, does it have to be private or can it be public? So for instance, because we've talked in the past about having just a table with all of these applicant ID numbers and some kind of status being updated periodically. So we know that so that at a glance, we can see all of these different projects and where they are and what's holding them back, or what's, is it something that needs to be private?
Thank you for your question. So there are things that don't need to be private or don't need to be public, like administrative stuff. A floodplain, a single family home that's just simple run of the mill. Those things are ministerial, they're administrative.
But do they need to be private?
No,
'Cause
not
my-
those ones, but the other ones. So if we get a restaurant, any type of commercial activity, any type of multifamily, all of that needs to be in front of you. That is public.
Yeah.
Those come to land use hearings. And so the public, as well as you all, need to be able to access that information. Our website, which will be up in about a week and a half, gives us that tool to not only have a map, but also a way to click on the items on the map and see where we are with the status.
Does it give you an all up, just a list of all of the current projects and their status? That's the most
Yeah.
important thing.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
what that
one
is.
view, not click to reveal.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
There's the
That-
list
just a
format.
table is all it is.
That list format is there
Okay.
as well, but
Yeah,
it
that'd be
it
helpful.
also has a spatial element. Both
Right,
pieces
right,
are there. So you have the
right,
map
right.
and below it is a list.
Okay,
It's pretty, and it's really straightforward.
okay. Then they would be able to see, they could tune in at any moment and see any part of the public could tune in and see what the status of that particular project or that particular land use question.
We're
is.
required to post that.
Yeah.
If there is a multifamily development, 3 units or more, we're required to put that in there. And so, yes, that'll happen.
I think part of the problem is that we only had one form, so that kept getting hung up, and then we didn't know where all those projects were. If I'm understanding what you're proposing, first of all, I'm assuming a lot of these forms may have to be modified, but they're readily available.
They don't exist here.
Not here, but elsewhere.
Yes, so
Yeah.
local governments, we beg, borrow, and steal
Yeah.
from one another,
All right, good.
absolutely.
So that helps. But I also see previously, every little tiny decision had to come before the planning commission because there was no way of collecting accurate information. So we were hearing things about, is a sign okay to put up here?
Yeah, yeah.
And I can see this still very public, but it's more of administrative rules can be administrative sign off if all the correct information, well, first got to get codes all up to date, but so that the application reflects the codes. If it meets the codes, boom, it's done and people are moving forward on it.
Just having some kind of more visibility, like we're talking about, is gonna really improve it, because a lot of the complaints we've heard, John, probably are people who are stuck in this oubliette of,
Yeah, remember?
Yeah,
when we
because
had
they
the
did,
gal-
It's
they
like
had
you're
no access. to these
circling the
forms.
drain,
They had no access to the right forms, so
Exactly right.
they had one form that didn't let them answer, so that's what caused a circle, that's what caused a constant revisiting.
And folks didn't know what they were supposed to do. So they brought
Right.
it to planning commission because they thought that was the best thing that they could do to get as many eyes on it as possible.
Right.
Right, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna tighten things up.
Yeah.
There's 3 types of approvals. The first one is automatic The city has no choice. The state overrides us. They can do it. They just have to put in an application.
Right.
So that's a rubber stamp.
They have to have that.
They
find
have
it.
to have the application in there. They have to give us all the land use information. But there's nothing in the code that can prevent it from
Right.
happening.
Right.
The second type is that it requires an administrative approval.
Right.
So I have to go through it and say that it complies with the code, and then they're good to go. Certain types of housing fall under that category.
Right.
Certain types of businesses, small businesses fall in that
Right.
category. And then the third type is the one that you'll hear most often. The only ones that you should hear, which are the ones that require planning approval and oftentimes city council approval as
Right.
well. And I'll be clear to let you know what applications are coming through for the first two types, so at least you know, but I'm not gonna bog this body down with a bunch of applications that have, you don't have purview over anyway.
So previously, this, a sign application would have to come before us and then get bogged down because it was never acted on, couldn't act on, and then we couldn't, and felt like every month we're revisiting the same application and we couldn't see, and they're having it. Yeah, so this seems like it would clear, it's what's been needed for a long time to clear up the process, to keep people moving through much quicker and with all the right forms, but we don't have to create all the forms, they're available, we just have
Right.
to officially put them into our system.
So, you know, oftentimes, so my firm would get brought on as the contract planner, and one of the first things we'd have to do is this. Is because
Right.
very few cities have all the forms that they need, and if you don't have the tools, how are you gonna do the job? Right?
And the fees were one thing that we had talked about from this group getting together and trying to work out fees, but those are somewhat, so we're looking at fees from all different local cities. But once we get this process done, then setting the fees is gonna be a lot easier.
That's right.
And I would think we'd want to review the fees, to make sure they're matched, but
I think we also, I'd like to remind that we talked about fees being related to some kind of tangible administrative and or additional labor effort and what those costs might mean or opportunity costs for those particular individuals. So that's a lot of the fee structure should be sort of based upon expectations of how much labor goes into actually managing these things. So
You guys are absolutely right. So it is based on time. One thing I have is a spreadsheet that captures all of the fees for every type of form that we have in the entire city. It's taken me some time to put that together. Planning, of course, is sparse because there's a lot of fees that never existed. But you're right. What I do is there's a column in there. How much time does this take me? And are there any resources that we pay for, software, for example, that I can justify? If I get 100 of these a year, I split that software cost into 100 pieces.
and legal, right? Aren't there?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Those
And
all
then-
get, and then what we'll do is we'll test that number
Mm.
against what other local governments are doing, rather than the other way around. I think what a lot of people do is they say, well, okay, how much can we get? What are other local governments doing? What we really need to do is exactly what you just did, which is what we're doing now. This is how much time and effort it's gonna take me. The public wants to know that.
Mm.
I mean, when they ask me how much it is, I just want to say like, because I can, it's not appropriate.
How
but-
much you got? That's
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
That's how.
How fast do you
How
want-
fast do you want this
how
to
fast you
happen?
wanna prove it?
It
Exactly.
always reminds me of that scene from Vacation where their car breaks down. It's like, how much you got? No. So also, just to clarify and to put a bow on this, we will improve clarity and transparency for applicants, a big deal. And we'll also create a consistent format for online submissions. And that is the other piece I want to let you all know. Once we're done creating these forms and they're fillable and you'll like them and they're on the website, we then get to plug them into our snazzy new online fillable form tool. And people who want to go online can just do it right there, submit it, and it pops into my email. Done deal. But we got to make the form and do it right. So I'm not putting any of these forms into our new platform until we do that.
So I know when I put my property together, put a house on it, the well and the electrical and all this other stuff, the counties gave us a card about yay long. And it had all kinds of stuff, had to be checked off.
Right, checklist.
And do we have such a thing with the county for all our building here? Because that was one of the things Red Hills was very lacking in its inspections,
Right. We talked about having a checklist.
but, talk's cheap.
I completely agree with you. So I have established a very good relationship with the new building official with the county. He and I had a meeting last week. We will continue to talk regularly. Having a good relationship with the building official is a big deal because those checklists, after it leaves our hands, because we're just planning and land use. Once we approve it, it's out of our hands and building is entirely the purview of the county. So we want to know what those checklist items are. He provides that to us, so no problem. I'll make sure you guys get to see that. They get to write those rules, right? So if we have a problem with them, that's something you can bring to me and I can bring to the people at the county to discuss. But I don't think there's a problem. I think you just want to know what they are.
Well, the problem is land use. If they did something that wasn't supposed to
Properly.
be done.
Yep.
What recourse does the city have?
Yeah,
We
and-
need to make sure that we're telling them proper information. There is at least one situation where we should not have said, go ahead. And we did say, go ahead. And the county takes that as given. And they shouldn't have gone
Well,
ahead.
before you showed up, by the way, there was a little bit of a fraught conversation. We had neighbors come in here regarding the new house going over here by Steve Rose.
Yes, I understand.
And the question was, what has he done with the county in terms of permits and inspections? What is his plan for tying into the storm drain? Because there was a big issue about the control of the water there, and the neighbor was very concerned about trying to take care of the water that was coming onto his property. And so I just wonder, like, what's happening, is there some way to have some sort of like insight into that process? Because otherwise it's just kind of a dark and rather opaque kind of process.
Thank you, Commissioner Nielsen. This is one of the more hairy situations I've inherited. I am aware of it. I know the issues. I am meeting with Mr. Rose on Friday. I will not go into any great detail about that at the moment until I've had the opportunity to get briefed by him and make sure that my facts are straight. But I am aware of the problem and I am addressing it.
And a good question. So how would this new approach with these new forms have avoided that problem? It seems like a couple of these forms would have helped us catch those kind of things early on and be more connected with the county if we'd had the range of applications here.
Internally, there is a checklist that we should have always had but haven't and will moving forward. That checklist includes infrastructure,
Mhm.
capacity.
Right.
There needs to be a statement that comes from the city, and this is why I'll be training Mark to make sure that he's capable of understanding these questions and responding to them. What is our capacity for water? What is our capacity for sewer? And we need to be able to provide the applicant with a document that states that we will allow them to connect to that infrastructure because the capacity exists.
In the plan to do it.
That's exactly right. And then collect the system development
Let's see
fees that
that
are
it's-
associated with that. There are a lot of check boxes for a lot of projects over the last couple of years. Many of them are in my lap right now that just never got done. And people are angry. The county doesn't know what's going on. They're knocking at our door. A lot of people are concerned. This is what we're going to be buttoning up.
Right.
And so the things that we're going to do first is that general land use application. That's the one I want you all to spend all your time on, really. I will bring to you the more detailed information about the other forms next month. We'll get into a little more of the weeds about that. I'll get your feedback. But this is the one where people come in the door. That's the first one they should get. We haven't ever used this application before. It's sat there since 2008. I don't think Hanbom used this. And I think our first city administrator was like 2014 or something, right?
Jim Menard.
Was it Menard? It wasn't Hanbom? There was somebody before that?
Jim
Menard.
Menard.
Okay.
Menard, yeah.
Got it.
He was a part-time.
Oh, okay. So please take a look at that application. If there are comments, feel free to email them to me, bring them to the meeting. Don't forget, you will get that email from me that includes a link about the Envision Monroe stuff. I know we covered a lot tonight. Is there anything else on any of these topics that folks want clarification on or want to comment for the good of the order?
Just real quick, so that, the document we're looking at, the land use permit application, the recommended core set of land use forms that you hope to develop and you hope to review, is that going to automatically change this land use form anyway? I mean, is there information that's collected in the land use form that will not be applied once we get these other forms in, or will this always stand alone?
Everything just needs, it seems like the land use form is something that applies to everything. So
It does.
that's-
It's a
that's the-
top level, no
gate-
matter
it's
what
a
you're
gate-
doing. I don't care if you're doing a food cart or a house or a business.
This is a
Every,
gateway form before you
Yes.
look at the rest.
in that
Okay.
form should inform us
Right,
about what other forms need to be provided to the applicant. That's what that does.
okay,
We have somebody who came to us and they ended up getting a partition permit. In reality, they needed a subdivision permit.
Right.
And if we had gone through this process first,
Right.
we would have avoided a lot of back and forth.
we can take the sign permit out of there.
That's exactly
All right,
right.
good.
So this is your markup copy. I want you to rip this apart. If you were somebody coming into the city and wanting to build, what would you expect to see?
Well, frankly, here's what I would expect, because honestly, when I look at this form right now, this has a lot of additional information, but in terms of like what it's capturing from the client or is really just pretty minimal.
Yes, it
So-
is.
So this just has a minimal, like, these are just the basic details about the contact information and just to kind of, I'm literally like one line, like, what do you want to do? But what I would need is this staple to it that says, now, here is a orientation of all the different types of applications that we intake, and please include or ask me for these other applications so that I can then go down that route. But if you just gave me this, then I still would be in the dark until you gave me the orientation.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And there'll still be the consultation. That
Right.
helps clarify if there's anything that was missed. Here's the other thing I'll tell you that I suggest you do when you go looking at that form. So first off, you want to think like an applicant, right? Nobody that knows anything, you're just coming into the city. But I also want you to think about finding a city to look at as an example. Check ABC City. How do they handle their general land use application form? What does their introductory general land use application form look like? Just glean from it. Are there things on there you like that really should belong here? As if you were an applicant in that city, did that make a lot more sense to you? Or the other way around, maybe it's possible we're doing something that nobody else is doing that you really like, right? Good or bad. I want you to look and emulate and try to decide what you like from some other city, but then also think about a land use applicant here in this city, what's missing. That might be one way to look at this or do it.
Makes sense.
Right, and this is the timeline. We'll audit and reformat these forms, beginning with the general land use and the really critical ones now. So that's by the end of the year, I'd like to have the general and the really important ones done. Phase 2, by Q1 of next year, I'd like to have the floodplain, temporary use, sign and right of way stuff done. And then our phase 3, by Q2 of 2026, we should be able to have all of these done and we'll get them online as we go. But they should be a full set of documents with a checklist and everything done by the middle of 2026.
So is the codes committee, is it still inactive? I would think that'd be a very special one to have, because if our codes aren't up to date.
I'm not familiar with that committee. Codes committee?
Well, it was,
There's a development review committee at one point in time or some kind of
you know, it dealt with codes.
Yep. So typically a lot of cities have an ad hoc committee that'll come together. It's very planning focused, but if there's a time to look at the code and make revisions, they'll usually have some kind of committee that makes recommendations to the planning commission. It's helpful to have that. It's typically ad hoc. It's not usually one that is just,
And that's fine.
and I like what you're saying. We definitely want to do that. What we're doing right now, and to put a point on what you're saying, what we're doing right now will need to be introduced into the code. A lot of these forms, a lot of these steps and processes don't live in the code right now. So what we're going to do is build the process that we want to have and then go update the code to match that. We will have committees, we will have you all in part of the Envision Monroe process, thinking not only about the comprehensive plan, but the code. And the reason I bring this up is because how many of you were here during the comp plan process in 2019? I know, John, you were too. What we did not do and should have done is updated the code at the same time. They talk with one another. they speak to one another. The comprehensive plan is lofty visioning, and the land use code is the implementation document of your comp plan. Anytime you update the comp plan, you must update your land use code. We just never did that. So we're gonna have to.
I went down and talked to Jim Menard when he was the manager, and I said, hey, I read through this comp plan and it's so outdated, it's not even funny. And he told me, he says, well, by law, we don't have to update that.
He's
And I
right.
said, what?
He's right.
Well, what would bring anybody wanna build here then? If your codes and comprehensive plan's not up to date?
You're right.
So, it just made no sense to me.
If you're a developer and you're looking at 4 or 5 potential cities to build your next big thing, you're gonna go with the one that's gonna be the least amount of time from application to development. If you're gonna get the runaround, that's money lost. So you're not gonna come here. You're absolutely right. But by law, only cities over 10,000 are required to go through a 6-year or an 8-year periodic review. You have to open up your comp plan and your land use development code and go through that periodic review process to make sure it's up to date. Anybody below 10,000, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, but at that time, we had those little water tanks up there. That's the only thing we had for, comp plan showing our municipal water.
Wow.
It didn't show the big 1,000,000-gallon tank.
Really?
And I said, Jim, this is not right. So anyways, Sam Slot, he got on board with that, and we just took off with it. So
Nice.
then,
So-
everybody else that, helped with it. And of course, we didn't know what we were doing, so that got Portland, State to help
Oh, yeah, we got Portland State, yeah.
with, information because it was way out of our league.
Yeah.
So gave them a project for signing off on. Work out well.
So is there, we had talked about code updates, again, to kind of align with the state, new state requirements for code updates. And there was an opportunity to write a grant to have somebody come in, deals with codes regularly, to help with that process. Is that,
I remember that.
do you think that's still important to do time-wise and efficiency-wise? I don't know if the grants are still available.
Is the rare program
is
still
it-
available?
No.
No, it's not.
The RARE program is currently on a hiatus while they try to determine how they're gonna refund now that AmeriCorps was pulled by this administration.
Got it.
Or is that an expertise that you have, or?
Do that. So I'll do anything I can potentially do in-house. This is all stuff that I've done for cities privately. So I certainly have the tools and expertise to do that. It comes down to time.
Yeah, that's
And
what I
so
was-
there may be the need to pull in support.
Good.
I will also tell you that because Don and Shannon in the office I've been automating many of their processes.
Yeah.
So it's no longer print this out, copy it, like a endless loop of work. They've actually,
Thing to do now?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But Don and Shannon
Did you
are both,
replace them with AI?
they're getting involved in planning. They're doing
Starting.
planning work. And so they're gonna help me with that stuff. Don was at a training just a week ago about finance and budgeting. We're
Good.
sending both of them to training about planning. I need to train my staff people that I already pay
Yeah,
to do the
right.
things that can support me.
Well, it is a time that I'm get concerned about, because
Yep.
it's such a big task, because the Riverside District Master Plan recommended a whole bunch of code updates. It was passed by this body and by the city council, but the code updates never made it into the code. They're never added to it. but
Do
they're-
you only see the code online? I've never seen a document that's just the code,
we have-
Yes, we have a land use code.
Yeah.
It exists online. It is extremely difficult. to
but
find.
it's not printed out. That's
yeah.
right there. That's
It does exist. It is printed out. We have a
Yeah.
copy at the city if somebody ever wants to inspect it. Same with the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
But to
Yeah.
John's point, and to my point at the very beginning of this meeting, the post-acknowledgement plan amendment, the PAPA, those need to get processed for every single little code change that you do. Your
Right.
consultant's not gonna do that. Your rare person's not gonna do that.
No.
PSU is not gonna do that. Rare and PSU didn't even know that needed to happen.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have
can't even
students
see
and it's
tonight.
great to have students, but you
Right.
also need
Do it
people
with
who know
braille.
what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
You can't assume they're supervisors now.
I know it's a huge task, and because right now we're so far behind, there's so many other pieces to include in it and the state. And that's such a fundamental task. If there's any way I mean, I would certainly encourage.
Well,
any-
we didn't
any
even,
help.
according to TJ, we didn't even file the comp
I know.
plan. I mean, it's just like mind boggling.
Right, so there's just a lot of work to
It's
do.
mind boggling.
So I've had wonderful conversations with our DLCD representative, Patrick Weingard. He confirmed these things for me as well. I said, listen, I'm gonna raise these concerns. I want to let you know what I'm seeing. Please let me know if I'm right. He says, yeah, no, you're right. Those things were not acknowledged, but I let him know my plan to complete it. He's in full support.
Good.
I will be having the regional solutions team here in a couple of months from now. That's a representative from every single state agency that supports anything having to do with land use. They're gonna be providing trainings at one of our joint sessions. I'll also be doing some trainings and showing you the stuff that we're triaging first that needs to get done. If I don't have the capacity to do these things, we are absolutely going to pull in consultants to help us with that. We just got $50,000 to look at expanding the urban growth boundary. Some of the things in our land use code are gonna have to speak to that, so we can use some of that funding to address some of these issues.
Good.
And there's other funding that we're
Yeah.
waiting on right now too.
Yeah, the point is, we need you to do supervision to make sure these things are actually carried through the final.
That's exactly
And if there's any way we can assist
I
or
get this-
recommend help, we would like to make sure we do that.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that we can keep moving on some of these.
You're
things.
saying put you to work.
Well,
Well,
I was-
we're saying, yeah, not us.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Actually, and I wanna, if it's okay, I'd like to kind of hop on that idea, because I do appreciate the input regarding the forms, but honestly, it's pretty clear that you have the expertise and the tools. I am more along the lines of, can we just review your work product? I don't know if we need to be a barrier or some kind of like input point.
That's what we're doing.
So
I won't
as
be
long as
coming-
you just provide us with the things to look at, we would just approve.
No,
You know.
Torrin, we want you
Yes.
to write up all these forms.
I know, I mean, I appreciate your
Make 'em look good.
suggestions, but,
I will not be creating the forms.
Yeah.
I
okay,
will be coming to you with draft forms. And I'm gonna say,
okay, great.
what do you think?
But
Do
I
we
think
like
it's
this?
a
Are
good
there-
idea when he says, look, because look at it with our eyes, like,
Yeah,
you know, he has this
Give him
vast
some
amount, and
input.
if we're just
Right,
like,
right.
here's Joe Q Public, that's me,
Yeah,
like, if
right,
I'm gonna, it's good to have fresh eyes take a look at
that's
it.
true.
Does it
That's
make sense
true.
to you all?
Right.
Exactly right. I love the way that you put that, because you're planning commissioners, but also you're members of the public, and you want to be able to,
We're actually real people.
that's what we need. Oftentimes, this stuff never makes it out to the public. The planning
Yes.
commission oftentimes isn't asked about this stuff. It just happens, right? I want to make sure you have that input, and I think the council wants that too.
All right, sounds great.
We have two people online. Do you guys have anything you want to add to questions you have? Bob Stone, Kim?
Nothing for me right now.
Okay,
Thank you, though.
you're welcome. Kim, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Anything else? I know we didn't approve the minutes of the previous meeting, but I haven't read them, so I would.
Thank you for bringing that up. And I maybe forgot to mention this at the joint session, and my apologies. We are no longer producing written minutes. All the meetings are available on our YouTube channel and on our website. If you want to go back and review those minutes, or any member of the public can go right through and just zoom in on where you want. There's a transcript for each one of them that gets produced automatically by the tools, by the AI tools that are already built in. I'm not gonna spin my wheels or have staff spend 10 hours a month doing a bunch of meeting minutes. So there won't be anything to approve anymore, but there will be summaries and action items, which you continue to get from me,
That's the most important part.
doing stuff.
Seeing the table of things that we need to deal
What
with.
did we do?
I
The
have
list
stacks-
of
I have
open
stacks of minutes.
issues.
I have stacks of minutes, just going back, it just,
I know,
Huge piles.
I started collecting them, then about 2 years ago, I said, why am I saving these? Yeah,
Wood stove, fire starter.
Insomnia?
yeah,
any data nerds here?
no.
Okay, so I'm a data nerd. We talk about the term noise, right? Noise is all the fluff and stuff that has nothing to do with the piece of info that you care about. And that's the problem that we have here too. If I bog you down with a bunch of stuff that really isn't the action items or the issues, and you have just a bunch of minutes to approve and other stuff, it's too much noise. It's too much fluff out there. I need to keep you focused on what we're doing.
The only problem with that whole theory is if we don't finish the thought or the plan or the process that was started the month before.
Yep.
And it never gets brought up again until somebody a year from now says, hey, we were just talking about that. Did we ever complete it?
Well, so two things. Those transcripts are searchable. So if you ever wanted to go through and find out where it was, you could. The second, your administrator, your staff members, that's me and my staff. We need to make sure that we do that for you. It's my job to keep that continuity. And if that hasn't happened in the past, that will be rectified.
Well, we brought up this fact of writing out different projects that have been,
Current
Talked about.
status, current
Well, yeah,
status list.
yeah,
The current member, what's
is
his,
it marked off, complete, or is it still in action?
that, the other guy was gonna do that. The guy with the beard.
Yeah, well, he had to because he
Right.
was lost with this stuff.
But
So
we didn't,
that process was a sign of a dysfunctional system.
Hmm.
I kept all my minutes just so I could go back to see if things had finished, but that's not a sign of an effective
no,
operation. That's a sign of me hanging on to things to say, listen, we already made this decision. So what, the overview of what we said we're gonna do, what we accomplished when we left, that's really all we need.
Right.
That would really help us, that it'll identify those discussions that we haven't solved yet, but also let us know what we did
Right.
address.
But the other problem with that is we have city administrators that haven't fulfilled their job.
Right.
And how do we know?
They-
Because now we're dealing with it, or you're dealing with it now.
there's no visibility to it. So it's,
There's no visibility,
so that
yeah.
it's, everything is a pipeline. So we just need to be able to see the pipeline that's currently active. Go back and see a list of the things that was done. But in the moment, and honestly, what would be very helpful is that we have a picture of that pipeline in each of our meetings so that we can determine that things are moving forward and that we've identified what are the things that are holding us back on each one of our, not too many, but just a few issues. So,
Well, on that same thing, so you have the project, you have the planning commission approved to send it to council. Did council sign off on it? And
status,
did the staff send in whatever to the state or whatever, and it got completed?
just a list of the
Little
status.
checklist.
Yeah, just a list of the status.
And
We're all
so
about checklists lately.
there's, well, and I appreciate that because part of it is you have trust concerns. And I understand that. Council has those same concerns. You're sharpening your pencils because you don't have the trust. We need to rebuild that. And that's what we're doing right now. And I will continue to do that. So as far as bringing to you what we're doing with
Jordan, you
applications,
have a long way to go with me on trust, just letting you know. Just putting that out there.
Oh,
Thank you,
you're a
Linda.
ruffian.
I endeavor to persevere. You can put that in the minutes if you like.
Put that on a checklist.
That's right.
there's a lot of stuff that happens administratively that needs to happen. And you simply don't have access to that information. It is what it is. But I will be clear with you that I am completing those steps. For example, at the end of our agenda is a note that you all will be having a quasi judicial land use hearing on November 3rd regarding phase 2 of the PNDI property. That site has been deemed complete. You will receive my staff report next week. By the 20-day notice, all abutters within 250 feet of that site will receive their notice. I didn't give you a checklist that says that I'm doing that, but I must do it.
PNDI,
That's Surge.
That's Surge's phase 2.
Surge is
so
phase
it's
2.
gonna Start building.
You will be hearing a quasi judicial land use hearing to make a determination. And I am providing you with a copy of his application. I will providing you with a staff report of my assessment of what's there, what's missing, and my recommendation. And you all will be able to put on your quasi judicial land use hats and make a decision that goes to council.
When's the moratorium come into effect?
The moratorium, if it comes into effect, will be after that approval. However, please be aware that in order for him to break ground, he must also have building permits completed before a moratorium goes into effect. You need both pieces. You need planning and building. Now, I'm not trying to race towards moratorium. We're trying to get there methodically because that is its own legal issue. And if we do it wrong, we'll get hit with a lot worse than anything you could imagine. So we're gonna do it right. And if he gets through before moratorium, great. And if he doesn't, we'll make sure we're there to help him with that process.
But with the water and the sewer being an issue,
There still needs to be a capacity assessment. And so I think what you're getting at is it possible we give him planning approval and he simply can't move forward? Yes, because in planning approvals, there are things called conditions. And we say, you may move forward and do this thing. However, a condition of approval, as listed here below, means you must do all of these things before you can go to the building department. The county receives our conditions of approval. The county's decision can only be as good as the quality of information we provide to them. So if we don't have the system capacity until it's improved and the correction action plan is complete, well, they have planning approval, but that condition prevents them from
Who
moving forward.
verifies the conditions have been met?
We do. So the county cannot move forward until those conditions are met. And that's why
who's we?
City.
the city, or I should say this, the applicant cannot move forward with their development until we determine and tell the county that
We
those,
is you?
me, the city, we, the city, tell the county that those conditions are met.
It's good for us to know this stuff.
This is how it works.
I just have a quick question. Are there any updates on the Oaks property? Are there any updates on Jody Khan's continued quest to develop his storage property? And then also the multifamily thing that's just literally right over the wall over here. Just curious on, are there any updates on those, or are they just still kind of in a current limbo?
Oaks property was on the wrong path. I met with Brian Oaks last week. We got him set up with the correct process. He will need some of these forms in order to move forward, but we'll get him on the right track. I told him I would expedite his permit because of how long he's been having to wait. It's significant. We're talking 2 years
Yeah.
for Brian Oaks. It's yeah. I don't know what you're talking. Is this the fourplex? I don't know. Okay. So as far as that one, very similar. They were given a essentially a variant, not a variance. They were given a partition. They really should have been given a subdivision. The state requires that. They don't give us the right to choose. So we just sent them down the wrong path. A similar situation. We corrected that. We're giving them the right course of action. That will come before you once that application is done. Both of those will come before you.
Okay. And then was there any development with Jody? and his
Jody,
thing?
you're talking about wanting to do that manufactured home over by his.
Well, there was that, and then there was the
Connex
Connexes.
boxes,
There were
shipping
Connex
containers.
boxes.
I haven't seen an application on that. I have no evidence of an application that was ever submitted on that. As far as I know, that's still discussion. And as far as putting a manufactured home on that other property, he told me he withdrew that.
He withdrew it.
He has no interest in, there were some issues there, so he chose not to move forward. He was one of the first people I chatted with. He was persistent.
Mhm. And now he feels okay, like he's being taken care of?
Yeah,
How's
yeah,
that
we mowed our easement, which he was upset about. I took care of the things that he said were a concern, and he was absolutely right about. And we have a schedule in place to continue to mow that, so there are no fire hazards to his business or his home. Yeah, absolutely. Jody's happy.
Great.
Thank you.
Seeing how the city does not have its own fire department
Mhm.
and fire marshal or whatever you want to say, the city uses the Monroe Fire District. I wouldn't say he's a fire marshal, but chief to sign off on a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
Like roads and whatever else. So is there a part on this application that, is there a separate paper that goes to him, or how's that work?
So what we've always had is just a discussion. And then I have emails that say, fire chief says it's good. That is not how we record that information. So what I will be establishing is something that I'd like to see at every local level, and every government I'm involved in will have one. A development review committee. And that really just means the people outside of the city who need to have some comment on this. We do our own water, so we don't have a water district. We do our own sewer, so we don't have a sewer district. The only people that we really need to check with is going to be the fire department, and that has to do with things that are really in their purview. If something's sprinklered, if something is commercial, if there is a fire ingress, egress, accessibility, all of those things need to be addressed. I'll be bringing any commercial project to the fire chief, and we'll be getting that in writing. He will also be part of that development review committee. What that will be is the applicant comes and speaks to the fire chief, myself, planning works, Public Works at an administrative level before it gets to you guys. Because I'm not gonna waste your time with an application that's just dead out of the gate. We need to make sure that everybody signs off on it, because what are you gonna ask? What does the fire chief think, right? And so that's gonna come before you as well.
I think there'd be some kind of stamp that he put approval on or deny.
Our process will incorporate that, so I'll be having documentation that I have everybody in that committee sign onto.
We gotta get away from the good old boy system.
That is what we're doing, and I sure hope, and I'm glad to hear that, because a lot of places push back against that sometimes. That is what I'm about. And so that's what I'll continue to do, and I appreciate your support.
I have one last question that just occurred to me. The Basaraba property over here, the old fertilizer plant, you referred to it as the Paulson Place. And I was under the impression that a portion of it was being sold where the trucker guy parks all of his stuff.
I have no knowledge of that because nobody submitted a land use application. Things can happen on the private market we don't hear about all the time.
Okay, so how does that work exactly? Whenever we talk about like the Riverside District Master Plan and the overlay there on the highway corridor, isn't it a part of a thing where whenever private property changes hands, that it still be in sync with our plans, our
Yes.
planning? So if they do sell that, and I guess I'm a little puzzled about how that actually gets integrated into the city's approval process.
So if somebody purchases a property and started using it for a purpose they just start using it for a purpose that they're not allowed to, the city is responsible for informing the property owner that they're doing something that is against some document or code.
So is this like a grandfathered in kind of thing because he was renting from Basaraba and then buys it, he can just continue doing the thing he was doing there without it being in sync with our master plan?
Yes,
I see.
it's
Okay.
an industrial site. There's,
So the issue there was a former city administrator said parking trucks fits with the former use, which, and that decision never really came to us. It was formally made that
Because trucks used to be there, that
used
trucks
to park
could still
there,
be
this will
there.
Continue use, so we can let trucks park there. Of course, it's never the same amount at
It
all.
wasn't like that.
But the question is, were there two lots there? Could they actually sell one lot, or did they have to subdivide to sell a lot?
they would have to subdivide. I have
And
not
we-
seen an
and
application.
we
There has
never
been no property
saw-
line adjustment application that came to me
Right.
yet.
So
Is
there-
the road still a road?
Yeah, as far as I know.
So it is now a county or a city road?
There was a easement that he granted for the Oaks property. That was what I had understood.
so
That
the-
there
the
was an
question-
easement that Basaraba signed that he said you could drive through there essentially.
If
But-
somebody wants to use an industrial site for an industrial use and they purchase that property, they're absolutely able to use that. Parking trucks is an industrial
The
use.
point of leverage we would have had is if that was a single lot and they subdivided in order to sell a piece, that's when there could have been an opportunity to intercede, I think.
Would it rezone? Because if it didn't,
Yeah.
then no.
Yeah, but at least when, and so I don't know if that was a single lot that got subdivided without notifying the city. Maybe you didn't have to notify the city.
You can't subdivide a lot without asking us because it's
Okay, so-
our responsibility
right.
to tell the county that they're able to record a partition.
Okay, so that'd be the only question. Was it two separate lots when Basarabi bought it, or was it a single lot and he subdivided? That I don't know.
I don't know. And when it gets to my desk, we'll ask all those questions
Mm-hmm.
at the right time. Let me be clear, though, this gets back to the defensibility stuff.
Right.
If we have something in our parks master plan and our corridor or overlay or whatever that
Mhm.
says you can't do this thing,
Right.
but it's not knowledge at the state level,
Right.
well, that property owner just needs to say that.
Yeah.
And we have no defensibility there, right? So there's the zoning change, but then there's also all that other stuff.
Right.
The best thing to do is be a good neighbor and make sure we communicate with them. I've talked to that real estate agent a couple of times now. As far as I'm aware, there are no big plays on that site. But as soon as I hear about something,
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, well, the goal was to sell off that one piece, and I don't know if that happened or not. And that, if it was already subdivided, there'd be no reason to notify the city.
That's exactly right. It could have already happened. The partition could have happened before.
Unknowns.
On the county tax assessor's list of
Yeah.
who owns it.
Yep.
That'll tell you something.
Yep.
Anything else? Anybody else?
I didn't give you your gavel. I'm so
No.
sorry. I'm gonna go grab it so you can hit
We're not
it.
worried
I
about
saw
that.
him pound the table
Yeah,
earlier. He can do it again.
Tim's not messing around.
We need a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
All right. Second on the motion,
I can second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
We're adjourned.
Thank you all.